All right, good morning, everyone. I'm Orange County Mayor Jerry Demings, and let me officially welcome all of you to the Orange County Tourist Development Tax Citizens Advisory Task Force meeting. As we begin this morning, I'm going to call on our committee chair to lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. Mayor Chapin, would you lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance?
I will. Please stand.
All right. Thank you, Mayor Chapin. And with that, let me formally recognize Ms. Linda Chapin, former mayor of Orange County, and Mr. Eddie Moratine, the president of Lyft Orlando. These two individuals have graciously agreed and consented to serve as co-chairs of this important task force. We have a lot of work before us in the coming weeks. Thank you both for your leadership and willingness to help guide this process. I also want to express my appreciation to each of the task force members. I know you all have demanding schedules, and I'm grateful for your willingness to serve the residents of Orange County. In 2023, I convened the Tourist Development Tax Citizens Advisory Task Force at that time, which was comprised of a cross-section of Orange County residents, membership organizations, and businesses that made recommendations on potential uses of future unencumbered TDT revenue in compliance with Florida statutes. My leadership style has always been to engage our residents in gathering input through a citizen-driven process and prioritize how we will spend tourist development tax funding under the current law. In my nearly 8 years as mayor, I have convened 7 citizen-led task forces to address some of the most challenging issues facing our community. The TDT task force process used in 2023 was very effective. As a result, I've once again convened the TDT Citizen Advisory Task Force with members appointed by the Orange County Board of County Commissioners, municipalities throughout Orange County, and a variety of community stakeholder organizations. The purpose of the TDT Citizen Advisory Task Force is to provide advice and recommendations regarding the applicants requesting the largest allocations of Orange County's tourist development tax funding. At the conclusion of your work, and this is for all of our task force members, at the conclusion of your work, you will present recommendations to the Orange County Tourist Development Council and the Orange County Board of Commissioners, who retain the decision-making authority regarding TDT expenditures. Today's meeting will provide a comprehensive overview of the tourist development tax, including its authorized uses under Florida law, the county's history of TDT collections, how these revenues have been invested over time, and the oversight and transparency measures that ensure accountability throughout the process. In addition, we have brought in a consultant to provide an economic evaluation and analysis of each proposed TDT project. Peter Bluestone, PhD, is the Associate Director of the Center for State and Local Finance and Fiscal Research Center. His research spans urban economics, static and dynamic economic impact modeling, and state and local fiscal policy. His expertise also includes modeling state and local impacts of policy changes in economic development using various economic models, including M-Plan and regional economic models incorporated, sometimes referred to as REMI, R-E-M-I. Dr. Bluestone has served on the Technical Advisory Committee for the Atlanta Regional Commission. He received his doctorate in economics from Georgia State University. In 2025, we welcomed a record 76.7 million visitors, making our region the most visited destination in North America. In fact, we have been #1 for decades. Visitation generated more than $90 million in economic impact for our region. As you can see and as you've heard now, this is very important to everyone who lives in this community. The tourism industry supports over 450,000 jobs in the Orlando area, representing more than 40% of all employment in Orange County. As you will hear throughout today's presentations, tourist development tax revenues are reinvested in our community to support entertainment, arts and cultural initiatives, and sports and recreation venues that enhance our quality of life while strengthening our economy. Through our TDT revenue, we have also made a deliberate commitment to investing in arts and cultural events. Over the past 8 years, Orange County has more than doubled its investment in arts and culture, growing our annual support to over $31 million, and making it one of the largest county investments in the nation. Just yesterday, I traveled back to Orlando from New Orleans at the National Association of Counties. Orange County was recognized for the Achievement Award for the year 2025-2026. Yes, for being #1 in the country for investments in arts and culture. So it is indeed significant. Over the past 8 years, Orange County has continued to certainly invest its tourist development tax dollars in various things with input from all of our citizens. Your work as task force members will certainly help shape how these public dollars will continue to be invested in our community to benefit our residents and the millions of visitors who come to our region each year. Thank you. Muchas gracias. Merci beaucoup to all of you for your commitment to this important work, and I look forward to the discussion ahead. I will tell you that we have received a number of potential applications for use of the unallocated, unencumbered TDT revenues that we have today. I can tell you from the beginning, several, unfortunately, we have to follow the current law. Our county attorney's office has reviewed several of the applications, and quite frankly, they don't meet or comport with current law. And so we will not be recommending that those who we have determined fall outside the scope of what is allowable. You will not be presented with the opportunity to make recommendations regarding those. You'll hear more about that as we move forward today. And so with that, at this point, I'm going to turn it over to the chair of this committee, the co-chair of this committee, Mayor Linda Chapin.
Thank you, Mayor Demings. We appreciate your observations and input, and I know you're going to be following all of this very closely. I want to add my welcome to the mayors. We are delighted that you have volunteered for this important assignment, and we can promise that in future meetings, not only will the parking be easier, but you won't be quite so cramped. So try and be comfortable for this first meeting. I really do appreciate your service. We will be joined later on by the comptroller, Phil Diamond, and other staff members who will give us the input that we need to be able to make the proper assessments. I would like now to turn it over to my co-chair, Eddie Morrison of Lyft Orlando.
Thank you, Mayor Chapin. What an honor it is to serve in this capacity next to you. I must say, it really is quite a delight, and thank you, Mayor Demings, for the privilege of being able to serve along this committee, and thank you, all of you. I just want to join in the words of welcome and gratitude for your service. This will be very important work for sure. I do want to get us started with our first presentation on the agenda this morning. We've got Oh, I'm sorry, we're going to move to introductions. Before we do that, I'm going to start over here on my left. We'll work our way around the room. Please keep your introductions brief. As you can tell, we have a sizable committee here. We want to make sure we have plenty of time for the rest of the agenda.
We would like to know your name, your organization, whether you served on the last task force. And again, welcome to all of you. Yes?
Thank you and good morning. I'm Jill Vaughn, and I am representing the City of Orlando on the task force, and I have not served previously on the TDT task force.
Good morning. My name is Steve Stanford. I'm the representative for the town of Oakland, and this is my first time serving on the task force.
Good morning. My name is Stephen Smith, representing District 6, and this is my first time.
Good morning. My name is Paul Zachary Shelton, Jr. I'm here representing the African American Chamber of Commerce of Central Florida, and I'm delighted to be here for the first time serving on this task force.
Good morning. My name is Michael Santos, and I am representing District 4, and it's my first time on the TDT task force.
Good morning. My name is Fred Robinson, and I'm the chairman of the Orange County Mayor's Veterans Advisory Council, and this is my second year attending. I do have one request. Can we take a moment of silence for the servicemen and women that we lost over the weekend? Thank you.
Good morning, Tico Perez. I'm representing District 3. I did not have the pleasure of serving on this task force last time.
Good morning, Arnaldo Oliveras, Chairman of the Board of Directors for the Hispanic Chamber of Commerce. It is my pleasure to serve for the first time.
Christine Moore, representing District 2. I did not serve the last time, but I was able to vote on the decisions as a county commissioner.
Good morning. My name is David Mink, and I represent the Pride Chamber, and this is my first time on the task force.
My name is Ed McKinney, representing the city of Winter Garden, and this is my first time.
Good morning. My name is CJ Mayer. I'm representing Orlando Economic Partnership. This is my first time serving, and I also serve on the board of the Central Florida Expressway Authority with Mayor Demings.
Good morning. Thomas Lynn. I represent the Asian American Chamber of Commerce, and I sat on the last one, but thanks for having me on this one as well.
Good morning. My name is Adrienne Jackson. I am here today serving for the historic town of Eatonville, and this is my first time serving.
Good morning, Vance Guthrie, representing the lovely city of Maitland, and I'm honored to serve for my first time, and I'm honored to have my neighbor in Edenville next to me.
Good morning. My name is Michael Poole. I represent the city of Winter Park. Somehow we ended up all the neighbors sitting together, which is nice. And I did not serve on the last task force.
Good morning. Chris Muller, representing an International Drive Chamber of Commerce, and this is my second round.
My name is Doug Gomber. I'm representing the city of Ocoee. This is my first time on the committee. I did not serve last time, but looking forward to putting in input to this.
Good morning, Sarah Baudry. I am proudly representing District 6 for Commissioner Mike Scott. Glad to be here for the first time.
Good morning, Joe Dunn, proudly representing District 1, and I am a first-timer as well.
Good morning. My name is Tina Demosthenes, first-timer, and I'm representing the City of Edgewood.
Good morning. My name is Eric Clinton. I am the president of the Central Florida AFL-CIO. That's the organization that represents working men and women here in Central Florida. This is my second time on the committee.
Good morning. My name is Pete Clark, representing the city of Belle Isle. Second time, and like Commissioner Moore in the past, I voted on many of these, so glad to be here.
Good morning. My name is Tom Callan. I'm with District 3, the first time on the committee.
Good morning. I'm Chip Bios. I'm representing District 1, and it's my first time on the committee.
Kimberly Bukite. Most people call me Kim. I'm with City of Apopka, and it's my first time, so please excuse my naive questions in advance.
Good morning. My name is Andre Berry. I'm here representing District 2, and this is my first time on the committee. Thank you.
Good morning. My name is Rishi Baga. I'm first time on the committee as well, and proud to be a District 4 representative.
Good morning, I'm Sergio Alvarez, representing District 5, and first time as well.
Before I turn it over to my co-chair, I want to introduce Roseanne Harrington to my left, who is Mayor Deming's Chief of Staff and who is responsible for all these materials that you have in front of you, she and her staff. So we will now begin the official presentations, and I turn it to my co-chair.
Indeed. Thank you, Mayor Chapin, and thank you all of you for being here. And now we'll turn to the first presentation of our time together this morning with the history of the Orange County Tourist Development Tax by Danielle Philippe, our Assistant Manager for Fiscal and Business Services Office. Thank you, Danielle.
You're welcome. Good morning and welcome. Good morning and welcome. Today, I will be providing you with a historical overview of the Orange County Tourist Development Tax. The purpose of the presentation is to provide you with a foundation for your upcoming discussions. I will begin by presenting some background information to explain how the tax originated in Orange County. And from there,
excuse me, you have a copy, members, you have a copy in your notebook to follow along, second page.
all right, so I will begin by presenting some background information to explain how the tax originated in Orange County. From there, we will review the 4 major uses of the TDT to illustrate how the county has historically invested these revenues. Next, we will just have a brief wrap up with a brief summary. So to begin, Orange County enacted the Tourist Development Tax by ordinance in 1978, and that is following voter approval of a referendum to 1, impose a 2% tourist tax, 2, build a civic center in phases, and 3, to develop a convention center and meeting space with an arena planned for a later phase. This is what we refer to as the original master plan. However, in 1986, the arena project was moved downtown as home for the coming NBA. And then it is also important to note that as authorized by subsequent amendments in Florida law, Orange County now levies a total of 6%, which we often refer to as 6 pennies. Consistent with Florida statutes, the 1978 ordinance established the Orange County Tourist Development Council and adopted the Orange County Tourist Development Plan to guide the uses of the TDT revenues. The Orange County TDC is a 9-member advisory board appointed by the Board of County Commissioners and composed of representatives from local government, the hospitality industry, tourism-related businesses, and the community. Member types include 1 City of Orlando elected official, 1 elected municipal official, 1 mayor's representative, and owners and who are subject and not subject to the tax. The current Orange County Tourist Development Plan outlines several plan priorities, including providing funding to construct, operate, maintain the Orange County Convention Center, providing funding for tourism promotion, as well as for the community venues, arts and cultural activities, capital projects and events, sporting events, and film, as well as providing funding for the Orange County History Center. Florida statutes also governs the allowable uses of each penny of the TDT. The following slide shows how Orange County currently allocates the pennies to support the plan priorities. So the 6 cent is split between Kia Center and Visit Orlando. The 5th cent is utilized for the Convention Center debt. And then the 1st through 4th cent is utilized for the majority of the plan priorities, including the Convention Center debt and operations and maintenance, tourism promotion, venues, the TDT grant programs, and the History Center. with this background in mind, we can now turn to review the major uses, starting with the Convention Center and tourism promotion. As approved by the Orange County voters, the Convention Center was constructed in phases. Phase 1 through 5 was completed between 1983 and 2003 at a total cost of $1.3 billion. Phase 5A was approved recently in 2024 for a total of $560 million. And this is with the recommendation of the previous task force as well as the TDC. Now, the county currently has debt outstanding on Phase 5 and has recently issued $300 million as initial financing for Phase 5A. We anticipate issuing the additional required amount for that project in fiscal year 27. The outstanding bonds pledge revenues from the first through fifth cent of annual TDT collections, and the outstanding debt currently on Phase 5, it matures in 2036. I apologize for the typo. And then for Phase 5A, the debt matures in 2056. However, the debt can be paid off sooner. Now, annual debt service for the Convention Center in fiscal year 25 totaled $36.3 million, and that is projected to increase in fiscal year 27 to about $48.3 million, and that is following the $300 million financing. And in addition to receiving funding for these expansion projects, the Convention Center also receives funding for their operations and capital improvement program, and that allocation is through the county's regular budget process. And in fiscal year 25, they received a total of $76.2 million. Next, we'll cover tourism promotion. So Visit Orlando serves as the official tourism marketing organization. Its primary responsibility is to market Orange County both domestically and internationally. It partners with the Convention Center to market the facility and the destination to clients. It also books vacations, lodging, meeting spaces, and travel in the local area attractions. It is funded mostly through TDT with some membership contributions. It does provide an annual report to the Board of County Commissioners and a quarterly report to the TDC. The current agreement between Visit Orlando and Orange County expires September 2032, and it auto-renews in 2028 unless terminated by the county. And there is a 6-month notice required for that. Visit Orlando currently receives 30% of the annual TDT collections, and when collections exceeds the contracted minimum funding threshold, it allocates $10 million to the Sports Incentive Committee and $5 million to the Application Review Committee, which are grant programs we will be covering a little bit later in this presentation. Just wanted to mention, in fiscal year 25, Visit Orlando received a total of $100.4 million, and that is excluding the $15 million allocations for SIC and ARC. Next, we will cover the community venues. So in 2007, the county and the city entered into an interlocal agreement, which has been amended several times throughout the years. Under this agreement, the county has authorized a total of $226.4 million for the construction of a multi-hall performing arts center, which we now call the Dr. Phillips Performing Arts Center, and $227.2 million to renovate the Citrus Bowl, which is now called the Camping World Stadium, and then $270 million to construct an event center, which is now called the Kia Center, but formerly known as the Amway Center. Now, these projects have been completed. However, the county continues to pay for the financing. So the county currently has debt outstanding for the stadium and the Dr. Phillips Center. The outstanding bonds pledged to first through fifth cent. It is outstanding until 2036, and the annual debt service in fiscal year 25 was $20.2 million. Next, the city has outstanding debt for the Amway Center, now the Kia Center. The debt pledges 50% of the 6 cent, which is remitted to the city annually per the interlocal agreement. In fiscal year 25, that total was $32 million. The bonds are outstanding until 2038 and must be paid off earlier when possible. Next, in 2004, again with the recommendation of the previous task force and the TDC, the Board of County Commissioners authorized $400 million for the Camping World Stadium renovation project, and then up to $226 million for the Kia Center renovation projects, and $90 million for the UCF Stadium Tower project. Now these projects are still underway. The city, however, has issued the financing for the Camping World renovation project. The bonds pledge the county's contribution of the contract TDT revenues, which is from the first through fourth cent. Annual debt service is $27 million. The bonds are outstanding until 2055 and must be paid off earlier when possible. And for the Kia Center, the city has not yet issued the final financing for that project. However, the interlocal agreement does require that the financing be issued by November 1st, 2032, with final maturity no later than 15 years from the date of issuance. Once the bonds are issued, it will continue to pledge 50% of the 6 cents. And last, the UCF Stadium Tower project receives $10 million annually from excess TDT revenues until that $90 million is paid. Next, we will cover the Orange County TDT grant programs. The oldest grant programs are managed by the Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Council. The council was established in 2001 to evaluate arts and cultural funding requests and recommend awards to the Board of County Commissioners for final approval. It is a 13-member appointed board, all appointed by the BCC, and includes representatives from the local government, tourism, higher education, and arts organization. The exact member types are listed here for your reference. Arts and Cultural Affairs manages 4 grant programs. The Cultural Facilities Grant Program, which issues grants up to $2 million. The Cultural Tourism Grant Program, which provides grants between $58,000 and $200,000. And the Blockbuster and Special Grant Program, which the funding is based on availability of funds. And lastly, the Venue Subsidy Grant Program, which is 50% funding by the TDT and 50% funded by the general fund. And the grants are up to $60,000 in that grant program. Arts and Cultural Affairs currently receives 5% of the first through fourth cents TDT revenues, which was increased from 3% in fiscal year 24. They also receive an additional $2.5 million annually. In fiscal year 25, that totaled $15.3 million. The following chart highlights grant awards exceeding $100,000 made through the current fiscal year's Cultural Tourism Grant Program. As shown, the program supports a diverse range of arts and cultural organizations. Next, we will cover the TDT Grant Application Review Committee, which we often call ARC, established by ordinance and resolution in 2016 and 2017 to evaluate requests for funding eligible capital projects using excess TDT revenues. The ARC reviews applications, and they provide their recommendation to the TDC, who provides their recommendation to the Board of County Commissioner, who's ultimately provides final approval. ARC is comprised of 11 appointed members. 2 are appointed by the mayor, 6 by the BCC, and 3 are recommended by the TDC. The committee evaluates applications using criteria established by the ordinance, which includes commitment to expansion of tourism in Orange County, soundness of the project, and anticipated return on investment. And I think there will be further discussions on those criteria later. ARC focuses specifically on large capital projects, so grants are in excess of $2 million, and to date, the largest grants have been up to $15 million. Now, applicants must be organizations with TDT eligible projects. Now, ARC currently receives funding when county administration reviews availability of excess TDT and allocates that funding to ARC. However, beginning in fiscal year 25, through the Visit Orlando contract, ARC receives $5 million annually. And again, that's provided if collections exceed the minimum funding collection threshold. To date, $136 million has been allocated to ARC for fiscal year 2018 to 2028, and $131 million in grants have been awarded. The following is a chart that summarizes the awards made during the 3 ARC application windows. As shown, the program has expanded significantly during the 2024 funding cycle, and available funding was insufficient to fully fund several eligible grant requests. Next, we will cover the TDT Sports Incentive Committee. The committee was created by resolution adopted by the BCC on October 2017 to review applications for staging of significant sporting events. It is a 7-member board, all appointed by the BCC, and include representatives from the tourism industry, local government, and the community. The exact member makeup are listed here for your reference. Now, the Sports Incentive Committee, like ARC, currently receives $10 million from the 30% allocation from Visit Orlando. And again, it's provided collections exceed that minimum funding threshold. And last, our newest grant program is the Film Incentive Program. It was created by ordinance approved by the BCC in November 2025. The purpose is to evaluate eligible film, television, and commercial production projects which enhance regional visibility and promote tourism. The program is managed by the county through a film incentive administrator and in partnership with the Orlando Economic Partnership. It has a 3-member selection committee. The film incentive is currently funded at $5 million annually for fiscal year 2026 through 2030, and that's from available TDT revenues. I know we have reviewed a number of different figures, so this slide here puts these numbers into perspective by showing what the county expects to fund from the TDT revenues in fiscal year 26. As discussed, these expenditures fall in the 4 categories: funding for the convention center, tourism promotion, venues, and the TDT grant programs. While the convention center and tourism promotion remain the primary uses of the TDT revenues in fiscal year 26, about 36% of expected expenditures are dedicated to community venues and grant programs, which is equal to the convention center's expected allocation. To conclude, the TDT was enacted and used pursuant to Florida statutes. The convention center, sports venue, and tourism promotion were elements of the original 1978 referendum. The TDT uses are approved by the elected Board of County Commissioners with the appointed TDC advisory input. Additionally, the majority of the TDT is spent on 4 major eligible uses in the Florida statutes. The Convention Center and tourism promotion uses fulfill the economic development mission. And the community venues and projects and events funded through the grants programs meet specific statutory requirements and generate community benefit by attracting visitors, supporting local businesses, and strengthening the tourism economy. And that concludes my presentation. If you have any questions.
Thank you so much, Danielle. We certainly have been able to understand the depth of your knowledge and the challenges of your assignment. It was fascinating to hear the very many uses that the TDT is used for in our community. I think that the media seldom tells us about the smaller grants. We celebrate them all the time. The Winter Park Playhouse, for instance. Congratulations to Winter Park. The Winter Park Playhouse just opened its newly renovated stage and facility, and we will see Pulse coming along. We will see the Holocaust Center coming along. And so we feel very fortunate that these many uses benefit so many in our community. And we've heard from Danielle that she will take questions. And so if you would like to ask her any of the multitude of questions that arise from her presentation, we'd be happy to have her available.
Just as a point of operational knowledge here is that when you hit your microphone to speak, the chairs can see who's weighed in, and then they can call upon people based on who touches the microphone. And then remember when you finish talking to turn it off. Thank you.
But don't trust me a lot with the tech. So, okay. Any questions for Danielle? She's going to be available at future meetings, I expect. So if you need to go home and study everything she just presented, she might be able to answer those questions in the future. Yes?
Will Danielle be our legal resource moving forward throughout this task force?
No, I will not be. That will be Whitney.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, just making sure. Thank you.
All right, well, we've saved a little time, and we are very grateful to Danielle for that extensive presentation. And now I think we will move on and to Whitney, and my co-chair will introduce her.
Gladly, I think this will get to some of the legal constructs and things we need to understand as a committee as well. So Whitney Evers, Senior Assistant County Attorney, Orange County's Attorney's Office, will now go through this part of the presentation explaining Sunshine Law and Public Records training for statute overview for this committee.
Thank you, Mr. Morton, co-chair. Good morning, everyone. I'm going to apologize in advance. My allergies are trying to kill me today, so I sound a little bit like I'm going through puberty, so forgive me. Stick with me here this morning. Before I get started, just out of curiosity, show of hands from the task force members, how many of you have gone through a public records and sunshine training before? Excellent. We have experts. I'm going to go fast because you can answer your own questions. All right. So, sunshine law and public records. Sorry, not used to presenting up here. This is a little odd. Okay. In Florida, we have both the Sunshine Law and the Public Records Law. Those establish our open government law. The Sunshine Law is intended to provide a right of access to governmental proceedings of public boards or commissions. It is equally applicable to both elected and appointed boards, and it applies to any gathering of 2 or more members of the same board to discuss matters which will foreseeably come before that board for action. Members-elect are also subject to the Sunshine Law, so I know you have some folks who aren't actually here today. This still applies to them, so if you run into them, be aware of this. All meetings at which official acts are taken or public business is transacted or discussed shall be open and noticed to the public. A meeting does include any meeting from the Board of County Commissioners and advisory boards, as well as workshops or committee meetings, telephone calls, text messages, emails, even informal or casual discussions. So if you run into each other at Publix, stick to the BOGOs or the weather. Don't talk about this. Advisory boards and committees may be subject to Sunshine Law even though their recommendations are not binding. Boards and committees with decision-making authority or authority to make recommendations, such as yourselves, to a decision-making body are subject to the Sunshine Law. In contrast, any boards that are merely engaged in fact-finding or information gathering are not subject to the Sunshine Law. Meetings are subject to 3 basic requirements, and I will tell you these 3 requirements are going to be handled for you by staff, so you don't need to memorize this. But the meetings must be noticed to the public, they must be open to the public, and minutes must be recorded. Reasonable notice is not defined by the statute, but it depends on the circumstances of the meetings. Notice must be given at such a time and in such a manner that both the media and the general public may attend. However, county regulations do require that meeting notice and the agendas be published a minimum of 5 business days in advance of the meeting. Again, meetings must be open to the public in a location easily accessible, of adequate size, and you may not discriminate against or restrict any access to the public. Minutes are required to be promptly recorded in writing, available and open to the public for inspection and copying. They typically consist of brief notes reflecting just the events and the actions taken at the meeting, and although audio recordings are permitted, they are not required. Your meetings will be recorded by Orange TV, so just be aware of that. Don't make any weird faces. It's going to be recorded forever. Sunshine Law. If you violate it, there are some penalties. If it is non-criminal, unintentional, you can be fined up to $500. If it is criminal, a knowing violation is considered a second-degree misdemeanor. It can be fined up to $500. You can be thrown into jail for 60 days and suspended or removed by the governor. Second part of our open government law is public records law. This is the one purportedly we have to thank for the Florida Man episode. This provides a right of access to government records. Every person has the right to inspect or copy any public record that is made or received in connection with the transaction of official business of any public body. And there are some exemptions, but only those that are provided by statute. So what is a public record? Any material made or received by an agency in connection with the transaction of official business and used to perpetuate or communicate or formalize knowledge. This is regardless of the physical form that it takes, whether it's a draft, whether it is a phone message, an email, or an electronic file. This is a good time to point out that your emails, should you get emails in regard to this committee, will be subject to public records. We typically like to suggest that you all set up a separate email account for that so that you are not mixing your personal email or your business email with any of the emails you get as it relates to this committee. Typically, that's easier for folks to do. You don't have to do that, but it's just a suggestion that we like to make. Penalties, the favorite part. Non-criminal, again, subject to a fine of up to $500. If it is a criminal violation, it is a first-degree misdemeanor, subject to imprisonment of up to a year and suspension or removal from office. And that is the end of that fun presentation. Do we have any questions? Yes, sir.
Pardon me, thank you. If we do set up a separate email address for this, what's the retention required for that email address?
Typically, emails are about 5 years, but what we like to say is when you're done with the committee, you can provide all of those emails to staff, and then we can hold on to it for you.
Great, thank you.
Yes, ma'am.
The button to the right. Just press it once.
Ask my question to Danielle now, or wait till Whitney's finished?
Danielle's back there.
Sure, go ahead.
And sorry, it's a newbie question.
Go ahead and ask your question. If it's
Okay.
something I can answer, I'll try and do that while she's making
It's
her
on
way back up.
when she was doing the presentation, page 25, about the major uses. And I read all my homework that I was supposed to read. But when I add this up, like what part are we going to be looking at? Because when I add that up, it's like 98 when you do 36, 26, 20. I'm a math major, so I gotta know the numbers. But I see, like, is there 2%? Like, what are we looking at?
We don't have a hard number for the committee at this point. I think that's something that we're still working through on our end. We haven't given you a specific number that you're working with. We're looking for your recommendations to the board in terms of what projects you think we should be focused on.
Okay, because these seems, obviously committed to 2036, 2056, and so on. So, and I got 2%. I didn't know, like, what's the number? So, okay, thanks.
Tico?
Thanks, Eddie. In prior commissions that I've had the honor of serving, the county has set up county emails for us so that we don't have to worry about intermingling communications with our personal. Is that something we have the ability to do? I know this is a very short window and it may not be worth the effort, but it was sure convenient to have all of the communication and the public knowing where to email us at the county so that all the records were contained there without putting our personal emails out there.
So if I can respond to that, we do have a TDT Citizen Advisory Task Force email. And so today we're going to be giving you a printout of all the questions that have come through that. We want to have all the emails come into one central place that's part of the county that monitors for public records purposes. And then if any member, we were not going to set up special emails. We didn't have the ability to do that for this task force. So we're just suggesting if somebody wants to set up their own, in the past, the last task force went ahead and set up their own if they wanted to, or designate which email address you wanted to send us to send your information to.
So if we're not setting up separate emails, and I totally understand that, are we going to publicize our personal emails through any of the county statement? I mean, I don't want to deal with
No, we
sorting
just have
through-
your name on the website, and any questions concerning the task force go to the county email address for the task force.
So you wouldn't be publishing your email for inquiries? It's just if you end up having communications regarding the committee for any matter, better off have your own email address. It's not your personal email address.
And where would we publicize that then?
If I could jump in real quick. Mr. Perez's question is a valid one. To the extent that we have his personal email address in our files, it would be subject to public record, which is another reason why we suggest you create a separate email address specifically for this committee.
And then do we alert you that we have done that? So that then that's what you publish instead of my Gmail account?
Yes. That's why when we first set this up, we requested what contact information you would like to use for the task force. So if you'd like to make any changes, please let us know.
And you may wish to decide as individuals whether you are going to accept lobbying from the public or from friends or others. My co-chair and I have decided that we do not wish to be lobbied and that we will turn away attempts to do so. Obviously, questions will be answered, but lobbying on specific topics is something you can decide.
Any other questions?
Question here, yes.
It's Kim Bukite here. I may be jumping ahead a little bit, but my wheels turn in a funny direction. So I'm kind of curious if there's a limitation on how much money can carry over if we do not allocate it according to our operations of this committee at some point. Can you explain the financials on that, if funds can carry over or not?
So are you asking if we have unallocated TDT funds in 1 year, do they roll over? Yeah, it's not like
Basically.
vacation days, we don't lose it.
Okay, so it's not one of those use or lose it things if we decide that we want to analyze something further, because this is a really short time frame and I'm concerned about getting into the details.
So to clarify, I'm referring in general to the county. We don't lose TDT money. This committee isn't being given a specific dollar amount. Again, you're being asked to look at specific projects and make recommendations to the board on which projects you think are worthwhile and should be considered by the board to spend any unallocated TDT funds. I don't know if that answers your question or not.
That's helpful.
Okay.
Thank you.
Let me just jump in also. We're required to have statutory reserves that we must maintain, and when we exceed the statutory requirements for reserves through consultation with the comptroller's office and our other fiscal experts, that is when we may have the opportunity to expand what we have approved previously for expenditures, which is the genesis for this task force today. We're fortunate, as I indicated from the beginning, that our tourist development tax receipts have been healthy. Tourism in our community is thriving, and as a result of that, we have additional capacity where we can spend additional dollars. And for me, the wisdom of what we're doing here is rather than just rely on the wisdom of the Board of County Commissioners to make the determination how we will spend those dollars, we're going to you, our citizens, to get input about potential uses. And so when you conclude your work, you'll make some recommendations, as we talked about, to the Tourist Development Council, and ultimately it would be the decision of the Board of County Commission to take the recommendations that you make. To the extent that we can, by involving the citizens in the process, your recommendations that ultimately you will make will be strongly considered by the Board of County Commissioners. Our experience, at least from the last time, was that it assisted somewhat in depoliticizing this conversation to where the residents of our community, the business persons in our community, had the opportunity to give some input about spending the people's money. There are statutory provisions that we cannot operate outside of in terms of the legal provisions, and that's what Ms. Evers is going to assist with today. However, there are different constituency groups here within our community who believe that we should lobby the Florida legislature to expand the eligible uses. Depending upon the conversation, the dialogue that we get from this, we very well may lobby the legislature to expand, but right now, we have to follow the Florida law. You will have to follow the Florida law in your recommendations. That's the scope of what you have been tasked with this particular task force. I am a firm believer that there are some community needs that we have that are beyond the eligible uses today. And, we will work diligently. But one of the things that I will say to all of you as you deliberate is that with the potential excess dollars, if you will, if I can label it that way, that is beyond what we have already obligated, do you want your local elected officials, your Board of County Commissioners, to have the final authority on making those decisions here at a local level, or do you want those decisions to be made by people in Tallahassee? Okay, and so the law can change through the legislative process, but I do believe that in order to protect what has already been collected, what we likely will collect in the near term, my goal is to have the decision-making authority continue to rest right here within the Orange County community and the Orange County Board of County Commission. So that is my desire. This is why I have created and constituted this body. Okay, so I want to be really clear about that. And that's my optimism. Okay. All right. Hopefully that
The
helps.
mayor has been very polite in his discussion of the allowed uses. Let me be slightly less polite, and because of the press conference that took place outside, and I will point out that the Board of County Commissioners and the mayor endorsed exactly what they're asking for, expanded uses and the supposed housing penny. The mayor led the effort to lobby the legislature and the Florida Association of Counties on those efforts. And so those who want something other than the allowable uses by statute, need to lobby the legislature, not the Board of County Commissioners. Is that clear? Enough? Thank you so much. And Whitney, I believe you have more to offer.
Moving on to the next presentation, the authorized uses of the tourist development tax. Perfect segue. Thank you, mayors. So, the highlight. We're going to talk about the taxing authority of the county briefly. Then I'm going to get into the authorized uses of the TDT revenue. I'm going to spend the bulk of the presentation giving you some practical examples, and then we'll summarize at the end. In terms of the county's taxing authority, the Florida Constitution preempts taxation to the state. Counties have no inherent taxing power on their own. Taxing power is derived from the state, which means that the state determines how taxes are levied, assessed, and collected. So we, as the county, may only levy taxes if the legislature gives us that authority. They have done so for the tourist development tax expressly in Section 125.0104 Florida statutes. That statute was put into law in 1977, and that original statute authorized any county to elect to levy TDT at a rate of 1 or 2%. The statute has actually been modified 67 times since then, but for purposes of this slide, most importantly in the 1980s and 90s to authorize certain counties to levy the 3rd through 6th pennies contingent upon certain requirements. And I will point out that any use of the TDT revenue for a purpose that is not expressly authorized in the statute is expressly prohibited. That language comes directly from the statute. In terms of the authorized uses, the TDT statute breaks those down into several main categories or buckets of authorized uses. There are specific types of facilities that are subject to owner-operator requirements. There are activities, services, venues, and events that attract tourists. There's the convention center, as well as the operation and maintenance of the convention center, public facilities, promotion of tourism, debt service on bonds, as we heard from Ms. Philippe, beach and waterway improvements, public safety services to address tourism impacts, and zoological parks, fishing piers, and nature centers. Now, these are all of the authorized uses in the statute. However, Orange County is not allowed to use all of these. Specifically, we may not do the public facilities because we don't meet the statutory requirement for those as of yet. We may not do public safety services to address tourism impacts because those are limited to counties that are along the ocean or the Gulf. And we may not do zoological parks, fishing piers, or nature centers because those are limited to counties of below 950,000 in population. We somewhat exceed that here. So, how do we break down those specified uses? First of all, the specified facilities. The statute says TDT revenue can be used to acquire, construct, extend, enlarge, remodel, repair, improve, maintain, operate, or promote the list of facilities that you see here, subject to the owner-operator requirement. So for convention centers, sports stadiums, sports arenas, and coliseums, they must all be publicly owned and operated. Auditoriums can be publicly owned and operated, or owned and operated by a 501c3 and open to the public. Aquariums and museums can be publicly owned and operated, or owned and operated by a not-for-profit and open to the public. In terms of tourism promotion, TDT revenue can be used to promote and advertise tourism here in the state, nationally, and internationally. Excuse me. Promotion is defined in the statute as marketing or advertising designed to increase tourist-related business activities. That revenue can be spent for an activity, a service, a venue, or an event that is primarily meant to attract tourists, which is evidenced by its promotion to tourists. The Board of County Commissioners does have to determine that there is a direct and distinct relationship between the expenditure of the TDT revenue and the promotion of tourism. And that TDT revenue can be used to fund convention bureaus, tourist bureaus, information centers, or by contract with other entities. And this is how we fund Visit Orlando under this provision. Debt service on bonds is another authorized use of TDT. It's not one that you all are going to have to spend a lot of time on, but I did want to mention this. We can use TDT for debt service on bonds that are used to finance the construction, reconstruction, or renovation of a professional sports franchise facility. And those franchises are limited to the big four, the NFL, NHL, NBA, and MLB. Can also use that for the bonds to finance acquisition, construction, reconstruction, or renovation of a retained spring training franchise facility. All of these facilities must be publicly owned and operated, or in the case of the bonds, publicly owned and operated by the owner of a professional sports franchise. This particular subset of TDT can also be used to pay the planning and design costs incurred prior to the issuance of the bonds, and it can be used to finance the construction, reconstruction, or renovation of the convention center, as well as paying those planning and design costs incurred prior to issuance of the bonds. In terms of the convention center operation and maintenance, this is an authorized use if the county elects to levy the tax to pay the debt service on bonds to finance the convention center, which we have done. You can also use the revenue to pay for operation and maintenance costs for either 10 years or the life of the bonds, depending on the timing of the levy. The timing has to be before 2000 or after 2000 if you want to use it for the life of the bonds. We did ours before 2000, so we got 10 years, and that's why you see a priority in the tourist development plan for operation and maintenance of the convention center. Beach and other waterway improvements. I know you're going to have some applications on this, so we wanted to cover this one as well. The statute authorizes the use of TDT for financing beach park facilities or beach, channel, estuary, or lagoon improvements, maintenance, renourishment, restoration, and erosion control. It also includes shoreline protection, enhancement, cleanup, or restoration of inland lakes and rivers with public access, as those uses relate to the physical preservation of the area, of the lake, of the shoreline. You'll note that I've put some dates after each of these. That is because the first bullet point was put into the TDT statute in 1985. It was later amended to add the second bullet point in 1987, and then finally the physical preservation requirement went into the statute in 1996. As far as practical examples, I wanted to give you a handful of these just to kind of give you a flavor of how the TDT statute has been interpreted in the past. Now, I mentioned to you that the statute itself has been amended 67 times since it was put into law. In all of that time, there are only two cases that the courts have, as far as I know, two cases that the courts have interpreted the statute, and both of those dealt with some bond issuances. So not a lot of guidance in terms of how we interpret this statute, at least not for lawyers, how we typically find the guidance. There are, however, 48 Attorney General opinions that have interpreted this statute. So what I've got here is a handful of the Attorney General opinions that have been published on this. Now, Attorney General opinions are not binding law, but when we have nothing else, we do use them as sort of a guidepost to help us figure these things out. In Attorney General Opinion 83-18, Osceola County asked whether it could use the TDT revenue to fund the construction of several different facilities. And you'll see there they listed a multi-purpose building, a horse show arena, a softball tournament center, tennis and aquatic center, a multi-purpose field/stadium, and a park and picnic area. The Attorney General said all of those except for the park and picnic area qualified because they were deemed to be either a convention center or a sports arena. The park and picnic area did not qualify because it was more of a general public facility. In Attorney General Opinion 2008-26, Broward County inquired as to whether or not it could actually use TDT to construct and furnish a hotel adjacent to its convention center. The Attorney General opined that nothing in the TDT statute authorized the use of the revenue for lodging facilities or accommodations such as hotels, even if it was adjacent to the convention center, so that is not an allowed use. Law enforcement, you'll recall I mentioned that is something that's allowed in some of the counties that are adjacent to the Atlantic Ocean or the Gulf. In AGO 90-14, Monroe County inquired whether it could use those funds to pay for extra police protection in connection with Fantasy Fest, New Year's Eve, and spring break. County pointed to the promotion of tourism use in support of its inquiry. The Attorney General opinion here provided that the provision of law enforcement is an integral part of county government. It's a duty owed to the general public at large and does not have promotion and advertisement of tourism as its primary purpose. Now, I want to point that out because they asked for this opinion based on the promotion of tourism. And under the promotion of tourism, the Attorney General said, no, you have a duty of law enforcement to everybody. This does not primarily promote tourism. So that goes back to the whole, it must be primarily for the promotion of tourism. Under the heading of beaches and waterways, in Attorney General Opinion 87-16, Osceola County asked if it could use TDT to improve and maintain the public shoreline of the beach of an inland lake. Specifically, this was Lake Toho. The opinion predated the addition of the inland waterways language to the statute. You recall I noted that went into in 1987. It actually went in after this Attorney General opinion was issued. But the Attorney General concluded that because the term beach encompassed beaches of inland lakes and therefore the county could spend the TDT to finance that improvement, maintenance, et cetera, of the public beaches on freshwater inland lakes if it was primarily related to tourism. Excuse me. Okay. Sticking with beaches and waterways, AGO 97-48, Citrus County asked if it could use the TDT funds to construct an artificial reef for snorkeling and diving in the waters bordering the county. In that case, the county's Tourist Development Council had concluded that the reef would provide a tourist attraction to replace other lost opportunities. I believe in this case it was their scalloping season that they weren't able to have anymore, and that it would enhance coastal waters by increasing fisheries and improving aquatic habitat. Therefore, the conclusion was that the county could spend their TDT funding to build that artificial reef based on the county's finding that such construction would promote tourism. So you're seeing a theme here, right? Have to promote tourism, you have to have that finding. Last one in beaches and waterways, AGO 2010-09. Sumter County asked if it could use the TDT funds to stock a publicly accessible lake with game fish upon a proper legislative finding by the board that such an activity would promote tourism. Here, the Attorney General noted that the legislature qualified the enhancement and restoration of inland lakes by requiring any activity to relate to the physical aspect of the lake. So this is sort of a reverse of the last one, right? We had one that went through and said, I want to do promotion of tourism. This one, they said, we want to use the statute for beaches and waterways and the physical preservation of the lake. The Attorney General concluded that although the expenditure must be based on a finding that the expenditure would directly and primarily promote tourism, the limitation regarding the physical aspect of the lakes made the expenditure for stocking of fish questionable. Oh, I lied. There's one more. Okay. In an informal opinion in 2014, Walton County asked if it could use TDT funds to construct boat ramps and to maintain, repair, improve, and expand parks and recreational activities. Now, this was an informal comment, so the Attorney General did not actually make a formal conclusion, but they did state that the statutory requirement that any activity related to waterways must relate to the physical aspect of the waterway, and a boat ramp was not an authorized use of TDT. Additionally, the Attorney General noted that as it related to parks and recreation facilities, any use of TDT must be primarily related to the promotion of tourism. And finally, they concluded that the purpose of the TDT was not to substitute for appropriations from general revenue for capital improvements. So this kind of goes back to the law enforcement opinion. If it's something that you owe a duty to the general public, it's not typically going to be for the promotion of tourism. Transit systems. This is something that I believe came up in the last Tourist Development Task Force. In Attorney General Opinion 2017-06, Walton County wanted to use their TDT revenue to fund a transit system that would have ultimately been operated by a private company. The Attorney General opinion said that the operation of a transit system in general may not be funded with TDT funds, even if it incidentally benefits tourists. There has to be a clear and direct relationship between the promotion of tourism and the particular transportation service being offered. And those services should include routes and schedules addressing specific needs of tourists, such as a shuttle bus connecting hotels with tourist attractions, if the county were to do this under the promotion of tourism. As it relates to the owner-operator requirement, in Attorney General Opinion 96-54, Alachua County sought an opinion on whether it could use their TDT for a sports stadium that was actually owned and operated by a not-for-profit organization, but the National Hot Rod Society owned the property upon which the raceway was operated, and they requested the funds for the facility. Now, in this case, the Attorney General concluded the statute did not authorize the use of TDT revenue for stadiums owned by not-for-profit organizations. So again, that goes back to those owner-operator requirements that we have to follow. Sticking with this theme, in Attorney General Opinion 2019-13, Monroe County requested an opinion on whether it could use their TDT funds to repair and improve a publicly owned museum operated by a for-profit organization. The museum was located on property owned by the city of Key West, but it was operated by a for-profit that leased the facility from the city. Again, the Attorney General opined that the TDT statute did not authorize funding for publicly owned museums operated by a private for-profit organization. promotion of tourism. I swear we're getting to the end, I promise. Stick with me. In Attorney General Opinion 2000-50, Alachua County wanted to spend TDT funds to construct welcome signs and welcome islands at various entrances to the Gainesville metropolitan area. The Attorney General found that that use could be considered promotion and advertisement of tourism, and the purpose of the expenditure must be primarily related to the advancement and promotion of tourism. That determination must follow legislative findings of the Board of County Commissioners after due consideration of the specific needs and conditions of the locality. BCC has to show a distinct and direct relationship between the expenditure of the TDT revenue and the promotion of tourism. One more, Okeechobee County in 2000-25 asked whether it could use TDT funds to sponsor events for a privately owned for-profit business that may give significant exposure to the county. And this one is sort of a trick question, right? Because I've been harping on the ownership and operation. However, in this case, the Attorney General found that the use could be considered promotion and advertisement of tourism. It wasn't focused on the specific facility and the ownership and operation. It was done under the promotion of tourism. Statute allows the funds to be spent for a venue or event that has as one of its main purposes the attraction of tourists, and the best evidence of that is that it is promoted to tourists. So that determination, if made by the Board of County Commissioners, qualifies as the promotion of tourism. In summary, you made it through. Expenditure of TDT revenue is strictly governed by the statute. Orange County cannot spend its TDT revenue on all the uses that were listed. I showed you those 3 that we can't use right now. Each potential use must be closely examined for consistency with the statute's authorized uses and whether its main purpose is the attraction of tourists. And ultimately, the Board of County Commissioners is charged with finding a direct and distinct relationship between the proposed use and the promotion of tourism in order to approve that funding. And with that, I'm going to have a sip of water and take any questions.
I'm sure you must have questions. That was an extraordinary presentation.
I've bored them all to death.
Yes?
Hi, Paul Shelton here. Thank you for the presentation. Greatly appreciate it. From my understanding, and I guess for clarity, it looks like the separation would be between support and promotion. Support of tourism or promotion of. Am I looking at that correctly?
Well, tell me what you mean by support of tourism.
So it seems like in some cases there could be a project in place that will support transportation or support tourism, tourists getting from one destination to another, versus the promotion of attracting tourists to a destination.
Yes, I see what you're saying. Thank you. So yes, the primary purpose must be the promotion of tourism.
Yes?
Yes, Wendy, I wanted to get into a little bit more about the nonprofits and the ownership with the allowable use of TD dollars. So I'm a little bit confused in terms of if the property is owned by a governmental entity, then that makes it okay. But then if it's operated by a nonprofit, in one of your examples, that is problematic. So how could that be rectified? Because I think we have several applications similar to that, where it could be a publicly owned facility, but it's operated by a nonprofit. Could you clear that up for me?
Yes, ma'am. And good morning, Commissioner Moore. It's good to see you back here. So the ownership and operation requirement really depends on the type of facility, right? So if it's a convention center, a sports stadium, both of those must be publicly owned and operated. Auditoriums fall under 2 provisions of the statute. Those can be publicly owned and operated, or they can be publicly owned but operated by a 501c3. And then for aquariums and museums, again, publicly owned and operated or owned and operated by a 501c3. And I don't know why the legislature did it that way. I suspect because this statute has been amended so many times over the years. I refer to it as a Franken statute because they sometimes don't look at what they've done in the past and add new provisions that make it a little bit confusing. So I don't know why they chose to make the distinction between auditoriums, aquariums, and museums, one of which can be owned and operated by a 501c3, one of which can be owned by a public entity but operated by a 501c3. So ultimately the answer is it really depends on the type of facility. So we have had some applications come through our grant programs where we've got a facility where it's owned by a public entity but leased to a not-for-profit, and we will look into that in some of those cases and see if it's something that we think passes the straight face test.
Any other questions for Whitney? Right here.
In my reading of the statute, one part of the beginning, it defines what a tourist is. And in that definition of tourist, it's just somebody who's crossing county lines to go visit the county that we are talking about, in this case, Orange County. So, for example, people coming from Osceola County or from Seminole County or Volusia County, neighboring counties, they would count as tourists. So would that change in any way this, this issue of the transportation? If we were helping tourists from neighboring counties come to our county with mass transit, would that be allowable?
So just a clarification, the definition of tourist in the statute means a person who participates in trade or recreation activities outside the county of his or her permanent residence. So it's not necessarily focused on Orange County, it's just simply where that person resides. Normally it's outside the county of their residence. The transportation portion doesn't rely on that as much as it does you'll recall, Miles, can I go back to my presentation? Sorry. When I outlined the portions of the statute that we can't use, the public facilities was one of them. And the reason that we can't do that in Orange County is because the statute requires that we spend a minimum of 40% of our TDT dollars on promotion of tourism, and we have not hit that number. So that's why we can't do the transportation portion in Orange County, unless somehow we find a way to do the transit service or the trolley service, like I mentioned, where you are specifically promoting it to tourists.
I see Vance has a question.
Yes, thank you. So, to the gentleman's point, I attended the mayor's special meeting with all the mayors of Orange County a few months ago about transportation and the problems we were having and talking about a pillar tax and everything. But, I know that we had talked about going to the legislature and having these done. But really, the problem that we saw was to get enough people to work at the parks, to get them to the parks. So, like shuttles to the railroad station so they could get to work. So I think this would be a great vessel to fix that problem if we could address that in the future with the legislature and say, listen, it really does promote tourism because it brings people to work in the parks. And if you don't have enough people in the parks, then that hurts our tourism. So it really does help promote it. So I guess that's more of a statement than a question. I just wanted to put it out there.
It's also a question.
Agreed. It would be great if we could do that. Unfortunately, we can't right now. It's not considered primarily for the promotion of tourism.
In understanding who we can promote and based on your presentation, it sounded like there was there's Arts and Cultural Affairs Advisory Council, and there's the ARC that receives funding. It looked like then on the list of the ones that had previous come that there were lots of arts and cultural. Why weren't those directed to those other committees as the funding source versus coming to this committee as far as their applications?
So you'll recall that there was a funding limit on some of the arts and cultural affairs items. ARC is $2 million and above. A lot of the arts and cultural affairs are below that number. And if you're talking about the last TDT task force, I believe, Roseanne, what was the dollar limit on that one?
75. If I can answer that question, ARC has to be funded by the board with excess TDT revenue. And after the 2023 task force, the board put $75 million into ARC. And the advisory board met and they allocated all $75 million over the next 5 years to 11 organizations. So ARC is out of money, and that's why they will be presenting to this group asking to replenish the ARC funding. And that way smaller groups up to 15 million can come and apply there. And what you'll see, some of the groups that maybe would be interested in going to ARC actually applied here because they were afraid that maybe ARC wouldn't get funded, and so they didn't want to lose out on an opportunity to apply.
Okay, cool.
And
So I was like, didn't know it was double dipping kind of. Yeah.
So that's why we're going to address
Thank you,
it
Tina.
early.
Yes, I think Thomas had his light on next, and then I'll go right to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. This is for Whitney. Whitney, question I have is that I'm not real that familiar with the statute, but I did see one of the slides you had dealt with in Alachua County 2050 on the entrance signs to Gainesville. And there they had some language that the county must show a distinct and direct relationship between the expenditure of TDT revenue and promotion of tourism. I've read the statute a few times, and I haven't seen the terms distinct and direct relationship in the statute. Is that in the statute, or is that just language used by the AG?
That is language that you'll see repeated throughout the Attorney General opinions. As an attorney, you're aware the Attorney General opinions, they like to look back on the last ones that they did and go, well, in that one we said this, so we're just going to carry that through. So that's kind of language that they've picked up through the years.
And following up with the 2017 Walton County AG opinion on operation of transit funds, it used the term, in that one, I believe, clear and distinct relationship, or clear and direct relationship. So that language I didn't see in the statute either.
Nope. No,
Okay.
that's a theme throughout the Attorney General opinions. That language does not come directly from the statute.
So that's
but
that. So,
we do have to have primarily a use for the promotion of tourism.
and I didn't see primary. Is primary in the statute? Because I didn't see that either. I may be wrong, but I didn't see that.
I could do a word search for you. The statute's 10 pages long, so I'm not going to be able to read through the entire thing standing here, and I don't have it all memorized.
Okay.
Because,
Well, I just think that may be an issue
know.
that we want to discuss as a committee at some point in time, based upon.
whether it's primarily related to tourism.
Or just the whole discussion about the interposing of certain nexus requirements by the AG's office and limiting expenditure, whether that's part of the statute or not.
So again, the Attorney General opinions are not binding law. Like I said, we use those for reference to sort of inform our decisions on that. And to the extent there is a body of opinions out there that tell us generally it either has a direct and distinct or a primary purpose, overall, the intention is the same for that it needs to be primarily related to tourism.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank
Pete
you.
Clark, I see your question.
Thank you. I'm kind of hung up on the Walton County thing too, as far as transportation. So now, refresh my memory, is Orange County the only one that has the 40% threshold?
No, that
Okay, that's
applies
statewide?
throughout the statute.
Okay,
Yeah.
good. But looking at that, if it did hit the 40%, and using the definition that the AG did for Walton County, would that not lead to the ability to do something between, let's say, iDrive and the airport, using TDT funds specifically to move tourists?
That's a decision the board would have to make.
Okay, I'm just curious if it would meet the definition. It seems to me it would. And so how close are we on the 40%, do we know?
I don't have that number off the top of my head, but I can tell you that the Visit Orlando contract, which is what we normally base that on, is 30% less the money that we're giving to ARC and SIC.
Which is 26%.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I think I see Christopher, and then I'll come back to you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Tiffany, and apologies here. My back's to you. I feel like I'm being rude. Great presentation. Quick question. Is it fair to say that, or fair to assume that all the applications that we're going to be seeing have been reviewed by staff and had like that predetermination that we feel like all the metrics you just went through have already been met, and those are why we're seeing them?
Yes and no. You're going to hear that after Ms. Harrington goes through her portion of the presentation. You're going to get a spreadsheet that I prepared quickly after reviewing the applications. I did an initial review on the applications and kind of skimmed them just based on the information in there. I've given you my thoughts on those that I think probably meet the statute, those that probably don't, and there's a bulk of them that are sort of in between where I've listed any concerns or issues or questions that I had about them. So that's something that you all are going to need to take a look at.
Okay, thank you. So that's fair to kind of assume that we can make that recommendation, whether it's nebulous on either side of the equation, and the BOCC would have to make that final decision.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Christopher. Kimberly.
Thank you. If I'm reading from the right part of the Florida statutes to kind of clarify those questions we've been talking about, this would be from Chapter 125, and it looks like it is section, there's a whole lot of stuff before it. I'm at paren 5, and I'm reading, authorize uses of revenue. A, all tax revenues received pursuant to this section by a county imposing the tourist development tax shall be used by that county for the following purposes only. So that's the exclusionary language, and that's word for word. I'm reading right out of the statute. So if there's any question on that, I think that's the right resource for that. And I'll give you my disclaimer, I'm not an attorney, but I can read.
Thank you, Kim. Rishi.
Thank you so much for the presentation. This is more of my own curiosity. I was interested to hear a little bit, and this was to Tom's point, about the AGOB opinions being kind of our set of law or interpretive, that we look at for guidance on this situation. You did mention that there were 2 times where it had actually turned into a court case or it had actually gone through opinion, but I'm not sure I recall us discussing that. If, out of curiosity, what did those deal with when it actually did go to court?
Those were related to bond issuances.
Bond issuances.
Yeah.
So not necessarily on the...
They wouldn't help you on this discussion.
No guidance to that. Thank you so much. Appreciate it.
Sergio, did you have a question? Yes, sir.
As a follow-up to the question about the public facilities, so we are not able to fund 40% in promotion. And I think based on the first presentation, I would think that a big part of that is because of our debt servicing. We are paying about $80 million or maybe more each year servicing existing debt. So would it be, in a hypothetical scenario, if we were to pay off some of that debt, would that free us up in the future to be able to use the TDT funding for public facilities?
So it's not that we can't fund 40%, it's that we are not at 40% specifically for promotion of tourism. And ultimately, the decision on how the TDT funding is made is based on a decision by the Board of County Commissioners. So they could decide what they want to do with that money.
It's also true that some of the bond issues have windows when they can be paid off, and others where it cannot be paid off early. The comptroller may address that.
And right now, we're at 26%, and going up to 40% is a very large jump, and so that's up to the Board of County Commissioners if they would like to do that.
Great question.
And I've heard a question asked, which I'll repeat to Whitney. What if the Board of County Commissioners decided to go to 40% for 1 year? Would that then open following years? We could go back to the original amount?
So again, there's no interpretation on that, and the statute does not state whether it needs to be 40% in perpetuity, 40% at the time that you choose to use it for the public facilities. So that's a conversation we'd have to have with the board and take a look at the overall scenario and what we think our modeling is going to look like moving forward. That's a conversation we'd likely have to have with the comptroller's office and make sure that we could cover the outstanding debt that we have, any upcoming projects, and the board would have to decide whether or not they want to do that at that point. But there is nothing in the statute that tells us specifically, is it 40% for 5 minutes or is it 40% for 5 years? I mean, my initial reaction would be, at a minimum, it needs to be 40% in the year that you're going to do that, and should probably be 40% going forward in order to justify that, because there are a lot of other requirements in the statute to use it for public facilities as well.
And we can't forget that those are huge amounts of money, and that if the BCC made that decision, it would probably preclude funding for anything else.
Everything is a trade-off that will come with great consequences. Mr. Tico Perez.
Thank you, Eddie. Thank you for the presentation. The AG opinions were enlightening. I would be curious, though, to have a little follow-up on this, to tell us what counties have managed to go in and change the uses of the funds. I know Key West somehow got it approved for workforce housing years ago, and I'm wondering what amendments have happened over the last, say, 10 or 15 years that the legislature has granted local municipalities the ability to go somewhat outside of the original parameters with a good lobbying effort, which I understand the mayor led last year. I kind of want to know what room we have to work with, or at least precedent what has been done in the past. So maybe an update, not now, but just an update at some point.
Thank you. I see Chris.
Yeah, thank you. Whitney, could you explain if we expanded the criteria over 40%?
Explain, I'm sorry.
Or I
Can you
mean, what
rephrase
would
that
the
over?
criteria be to go over 40% or 40%?
So, let me see, I think I have a hidden slide here. Miles, can you bring up the hidden slide for me? Yes, it's a double top secret slide. No. Should be the first one after the final slide after questions. They're at the end. Okay. Well, there are multiple criteria in the statute. There are some requirements that you collect at least $10 million a year in TDT. There are requirements that the board fund no more than, I believe, 70% of the projects, and again, a minimum of 40% of TDT being spent on promotion of tourism. Hold on, I didn't bring my glasses down here, so my arms aren't long enough to read this from here. Yeah, no, it's fine, I'm kidding. Okay. Yes, at least $10 million in TDT had to be received in the prior fiscal year. The county governing board must approve the use for the proposed public facilities by a vote of at least 2/3 of its membership. No more than 70% of the cost of the proposed public facilities will be paid for with tourist development tax revenues, and sources of funding for the remaining costs are identified and confirmed by the county governing board. At least 40% of all TDT revenues collected in the county are spent to promote and advertise tourism, as provided in this subsection. An independent professional analysis performed at the expense of the County Tourist Development Council must demonstrate the positive impact of the infrastructure project on tourist-related businesses in the county, or, oh, sorry, that's the end of that. That's the next section. I did have a slide. I don't know where it went. I guess it's really hidden.
I see one more question, Mr. Callan.
Yeah, I forgot to ask this question. Whitney, I've heard about a potential 7th cent that's allowed by the statute. Is that true or not true?
No, there was some discussion of that last year. That has not been passed, though, through the legislature.
And Tom, Frank Santos kind of has led the charge in Tallahassee trying to add more pennies instead of taking what we already have, which has done a lot for the arts and other groups, adding more pennies. And so that was something that he brought forward. It didn't happen this year, but it's something that he has mentioned.
I think those are all our questions. Whitney, thank you. Very grateful for you, for your knowledge and that great presentation. Yes, thank you. At this moment, I want to invite the Honorable Phil Diamond, our county's comptroller, for a presentation on TDT overview. After this presentation, we will take a break, so hold on.
So I'll be what's standing between you and the break. Well, good morning, chairs. Good morning, members. I don't know about you, but an entire morning of talking about taxes, this is like my World Cup. So with that, let's go ahead and get started. So I'm going to provide a brief overview of some tourist development tax numbers and then get into the remainder of these comments. So just some general comments first, because some people I know very well, some people may not even have heard of the Comptroller's Office or what we do. But that is the Board of County Commissioners, who you're going to be providing your report to a little bit down the road. These are the constitutional officers. I am one of them. And then just some general stuff about Orange County. And probably the most important thing is that we are #1 in TDT collections. It is very likely that we're going to have more than $400 million in TDT collections this year. That is part of Orange County's newly adopted, or at least tentatively adopted, budget of $8.9 billion. So what does a comptroller do? First of all, I'm the only independently elected comptroller in the state of Florida. Every other county, typically the comptroller and the clerk are the same person. They hold the same office. I'm the chief financial officer, the county auditor. I invest the multi-billion-dollar county investment fund. We pay all the bills for the county. We do payroll. We keep track of all the property the county purchases. I'm the county recorder, which means I record all the deeds and mortgages that people in the county have. And then finally, I actually sit right here every other Tuesday for the Board of County Commission meetings. And we also serve in that capacity as clerk to the board, the clerk to the Value Adjustment Board, and the Charter Review Commission. I see some familiar faces from that group. So we are responsible to collect and enforce the tourist development tax. It's also known as the bed tax, the resort tax, the hotel tax, the occupancy tax, the hospitality tax, et cetera, et cetera. When our county didn't collect so much tourist development taxes, the Department of Revenue collected those taxes in 1991. While you were on the board, Mayor Chapin, you all gave my predecessor, Martha Haney, the ability to collect those taxes, and I'm proud to say that if the DOR was still doing it, they may be charging the county 3% of what we collect in tourist development taxes as a service fee. With our office collecting it, we're probably 1/10 of that. So as I noted, I'm the county auditor, and as part of that, we audit the taxes that come in. That we make sure that everybody that's supposed to pay taxes is paying the taxes. We will audit TDT tax returns, and we want to make sure that everybody that is supposed to pay pays, because that all goes into the pot, which ultimately benefits Orange County. We also audit how money is spent. Organizations that get tourist development taxes are subject to our audit authority. We have audited all sorts of organizations, including and not limited to the Orange County Convention Center. So I wanted to make a comment. A number of people have asked me, and I thought this might be interesting, not just for you, but for the public, vacation rental platforms. I think people that have gone out of town oftentimes have stayed at vacation rental places, be it Airbnb or VRBO or whoever, and we do have a good number of those in town. However, I did want to mention that the major vacation rental platforms like Airbnb, VRBO, whoever, are not required to collect the taxes from all the property owners that may participate with Airbnb or VRBO. And we probably have thousands of short-term rentals around our county. And one of the challenges we have in our office is dealing with such a group of high-volume, relatively low-tax-paying people. So what we have done in Orange County, at least, is we have voluntary collection agreements with at least some of the major ones, like Airbnb or VRBO, where they will send to us in one check every month. I guess not checks anymore, but whatever it is. But they will send us every month all the taxes for all the people renting through their platform. And they're not required to do that. Some counties have chosen not to do that. But I think it's a good thing. It brings in millions of dollars every year by doing this. And that's money that would not be collected if we didn't have such an agreement. One of the issues that came up in the legislature last session was the idea of making all vacation rentals in the state collect taxes on behalf of all of their property owners. And that's something that I advocated for. The House of Representatives passed it. I think it'd be good for Orange County because, number one, there are plenty more vacation operators other than those four. Plus, it would give us the right to audit it. And that is something that is on the radar screen. And personally, I feel like everybody renting a place needs to pay the same taxes as everybody else. And that's what that would do. So, I'm amazed you haven't seen this chart yet this morning, so I'm happy to show it to you. This shows the growth in the tourist development tax from day one, 1978, when the tax was $3.5 million, and to last year, where it was $385 million. What a change, right? We've also gone from having a 2-cent tourist development tax to a 6-cent tourist development tax. So you can see just how much the tax has grown over the years. So the next chart, though, this is something that we recently developed in our office, and if I haven't said so, I have the best staff in North America because they can do things like this. And this shows a little more vividly one of the things that we are always advocating for, which is, although we appreciate how much there is of tourist development tax, we also want to make sure everybody is cautious about spending the tourist development tax because it is very volatile. It goes up and down like a roller coaster. And you can see over time some of the changes, some of the challenges that the county has had. And to make this just a little bit more granular and a little more practical, here's the message. You've got 3 times that you had very significant downturns. You had it after the 9/11 terrorist attacks. You had it in the Great Recession. And Lord knows we had it during the pandemic. And the point I want to make with all those is that, yes, it's interesting to look at that and see the amount of the decrease, but I think it's more important to take a step back and say, what was the consequence? Well, the consequence was at every one of those times, either the county or our partners had major projects undergoing that incurred some kind of delays or issues or value engineering or something, be it the convention center project in 2001, which ironically enough, only today are some of the convention center features being built that were meant to be built back in 2001. In the Great Recession, you had the city of Orlando with all the challenges for its venues. You might recall that the Dr. Phillips Center not only got postponed, but the project got split in 2. And these are things that can happen. And to put a finer point on it, when you have those kinds of delays, typically you're going to have more cost because it's expensive to start and stop a project. And you also have other costs that come into play when you're trying to do something at different times or in different ways than you originally designed it for. So I say that because that's something that I think our Board of County Commissioners has been very responsive. I had recommended, and they agreed, that we have a $300 million cash reserve so that we could pay the bills if and when something like this happens. And we've been able to. In fact, we got through the pandemic without missing a payment to anybody. So here's another new graphic that my office developed. And I put this out there because you hear about the buckets, the pennies. Well, I thought, let's put a face on those buckets, right? And this waterfall is to show you how tourist development taxes get paid, and you hear a lot about the buckets. And as far as the buckets, it's kind of like a waterfall, if you will. Not exactly like, horseshoe on the American or the Canadian side up in Niagara Falls, but it does show you the different priorities. And until the priority number 1 gets filled, you don't have anything going to debt service. And until all the debt service gets paid, you don't have any convention center or operating capital. And until that's met, and I'm not going to read every single one of them, but you get the message. And we now have 12 different buckets, and that illustrates for you, I think, just how that works. And I guess the takeaway there is, until you fill one bucket, you can't start filling the other. And that's just the way the Tourist Development Council and the Board of County Commissioners have made tourist development tax money flow. And it's especially important when you think about, it's not so hard in the years where there's plenty of water coming down the waterfall, but in those years when there's not water, that's where you have issues. And poor UCF if we have a year where we don't have the funds. So you heard about the 5th cent and the 6th cent. And this is just another recap of where the money goes and according to next year's budget. And in case you're wondering, well, how is it you collect $400 million and you're going to spend $628.9 million? That's simply because we have had borrowing, which has increased the amount of cash available so that we could spend that money. It's there. And that's a short summary of where the money goes. So, in summary, we stand ready to assist you any way possible. And I appreciate all of your service on this group and your willingness to make Orange County a better place. Any questions?
Yes, if you're able. I do see a question by Mr. Mayor.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Phil. Great presentation. Again, apologies for my back.
No worries.
Quick question on the debt service. Do we have any data available? I mean, I'm sure you do, but can we get data on what that debt service is, what the interest rates are, and if there's prepayment penalties and whatnot? And the reason I'm asking, obviously, is kind of going down that road of that's an option that maybe we're better served by paying off some of the debt service as opposed to the other.
Great question, and happy to provide all of that. I will say, we just refinanced a bunch of the debt. I think between my team and the county's fiscal and business services team, we saved about $20 million net present value. I don't know if we are going to be eligible to do any more refinancing for some time because we've got some new debt we just took out for the convention center, and then that refi, like Mayor Chapin said, you can only do that in certain windows. Right. But I'm happy to share everything, and we'll get everybody on the committee that information because I know several people asked that question.
Okay. Oh, thank you.
Great question. Thank you. Mr. David Mink.
Thank you. Hi. For the spending priorities, and we got the 1 to 4 cents concept, or the 6 cents, but is there a defined cap that is assigned to each of these categories?
I think the only cap would be what you could afford. And just like you or me, we can afford something based on, how much money we have in our wallet, or if we wanted to borrow money, we could pay for things that way. Whether it's a good idea or not to borrow the money, that's something that is debatable. But that's the cap. Did I answer your question?
There's no defined cap?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Perez.
Phil, thanks, great presentation. You get my back, but it's actually my best side, so it's
Yeah.
okay.
I wasn't going to say that, Tico,
I
but
know you were thinking it, Phil. So your slides 17 and 18, they talk about the 5th cent and 6th cent. I'm assuming those numbers are decided by the county, right? There's no legislative reason we need to split the 6th cent, 50% Visit Orlando, 50% Kia Center. The county has done that in their operations, right?
That's right. The 6th cent's kind of limited in what you can do. You can't do as much with it as you can with number 1 through 4. But sure, the county made a decision to go 50-50 on that. It could have been any different mix of uses as long as it was tourism promotion or professional sports.
Gotcha. Thank you, Phil.
Thomas Lynn, I see you have a question.
Thank you, Phil, for having us here in your presentation. My question, again, to echo Christopher here, on the debt service. If you have a entity that's receiving TDT money, and they consistently kind of show a debt maybe growing yearly, is there any type of plan or performance issue to review with them to possibly bring that the other direction on their debt?
To bring the debt
up from the growing to having a little better income at the end of the year.
You can always you can borrow more. You can pay down more. You can. There are a lot of things that you could do. It depends. My team meets with the county's fiscal team regularly to talk about opportunities because there's a good amount of debt, and anytime you can make decisions that improve your debt management, I think that can really make sense.
I think that answers my question. Thank you.
Sure.
Okay, one last question, we'll go to break. Mr. Baga.
Sure. Thank you for your presentation, Mr. Diamond. I'm just curious when it comes to the VCAs with the rental platforms, when are these set to end or expire, and what happens if they cease operations for any reason? How do we ensure we're still collecting those revenues from the individuals?
Good questions. They're indefinite, and the Airbnb VCA has been around for probably close to 10 years. Some of the, and it's interesting. A lot of those companies got absorbed by other companies, and there's been changes there. The thing I would like to avoid is, I don't think that it would be a particularly good thing to have to try to collect very small amounts from thousands and thousands of single-family owners. I think that would take a lot of time and money, and it's a lot more efficient for us and ultimately the taxpayers for us to collect it as simply and as quickly as possible. So as far as the future, in the future, I'd like to see the rental companies would collect for all their various customers, and that would be the law, and we wouldn't have to rely on persuasion and logic to get people to sign up, to get these companies to sign up for voluntary agreements.
Thank you, Mr. Berry. Mr. Baga, I see your question, and Mr. Mueller, you'll close us before we go to break.
Sure. Thank you so much. Thank you, Comptroller Diamond. Just a quick question. It's mostly my curiosity. We were hearing earlier that if these funds aren't spent, they do roll over. How does interest work in this situation, and also with our reserves? Because I know certainly we do have to keep a certain amount in reserves. Is that always growing on interest? How does that work?
Sure. If there are funds, we're going to invest them. We put out an investment report every year from my office because that is something that over time could be very helpful, and there's no penalty to hold the money. And I think part of that is really a philosophical question. There are some people and in some countries around the world where they would never think of borrowing money to buy a car or even a house sometimes. Others say, well, let's get let's get as many projects on the books and going as quickly as we can so people can enjoy it. And I think those are the two schools of thought. But yes, I agree with Ms. Evers' answer about, yes, you can roll it over, and there's no loss in doing so.
Chris.
All right, to land the plane before the water break. So the funds that we're discussing today, obviously we know there's a lot of misperception out there, but the funds that we're discussing aren't coming from local taxpayers' pockets. They're generated by tourists who choose to visit Orange County. Is that correct?
It's generated, the hotels send us money every month. My guess is most of the people staying there are from out of town. I've only stayed, well, I guess a couple of times. I remember we stayed, we had to get the house tented, and,
But that was a choice.
Not really. It's like buying tires for your car. I mean, no, but I think if you looked at the people coming in at the hotels, you own a hotel, and I think it's probably a very high number of people that are from somewhere else, for sure.
Right, but they're paying the TDT. Now, if you choose as a local to stay in a hotel, then that's your choice. But the taxpayers are not paying into this fund.
No, it's tourists, it's people that choose to stay at hotels and Airbnbs and whatnot.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Diamond, for a great presentation to you and your team. Let's take a 10-minute break, and we'll be right back.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. We will resume this complex work, and next I want to call on Roseanne Harrington, whom I introduced to you as Mayor Deming's Chief of Staff. She will provide an overview of the last TDT task force and the current interest indicator ranking process, which is really important for us to understand. Roseanne?
Thank you, Mayor Chapin, and thank you, task force members, for your willingness to serve. I had the honor of serving as the staff lead for the 2023 task force, and I am doing so for Orange County for the 2026 task force. So I'm going to go over some of the work that we did in 2023, and we sent you digitally a copy of our final report, but you have one in your side left pocket, is the culmination of our work in 2023, and I'm going to go over some of the recommendations that were made by that task force. I know there's a number of members in the room here that served on that committee, and this will be familiar to them. So first up was recommendation number 1, and that was the task force supports advancing the requests of the 3 granting organizations as presented to the Board of County Commissioners and will include the survey results of the board to make the final level of funding decision. What we did was for funding organization requests that you heard earlier, our Arts and Cultural Affairs, our Art Grant, and our Sports Incentive Fund. That was a yes/no question on the survey, whether you supported funding it or not. And this was passed on to the Board of County Commissioners and with all the results of how they scored. The second recommendation was the task force supports advancing groups with a weighted score of 60 or higher for consideration by the Board of County Commissioners in this order rank: Orange County Convention Center, Florida Citrus Sports, Amway Center, Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, and UCF Sports. The next recommendation was the task force recommends that Mayor Demings and the Board of County Commissioners strongly support the legislature to change the tourist impact tax so it applies to all counties. And so as you can see here, Mayor Demings brought this to, through Kelly Teague and her legislative priorities discussion to the Board of County Commissioners, and the board adopted this recommendation as a priority for a 2024 legislative session. In addition, Mayor Demings went to a session in Lake Mary with the Florida Association of Counties, and he asked them to support expanding the tourist impact tax statewide. Right now, it's only being used in Monroe County, and he was trying to get it to be allowable in any other county. And his thinking was, you not only, when you're dealing with the legislature, want to look at who supports it, but who opposes it. And he was trying to get consensus amongst all the counties to support adding this ability, and that they would just have to exercise that right if they chose. Unfortunately, the Florida Association of Counties, some of the other communities just were not in support of this, and they did not adopt it as a legislative priority. Second, our legislative staff here, led by Kelly Teague, who's Director of Legislative Affairs, worked with the local delegation to advance a narrow priority. Bill language is submitted to drafting, and ultimately an amendment was filed by Representative Anna Escamani to add the concept to the House tax package. It was not successful. So next, I'm going to go over recommendation number 4. And this was the task force recommends that the county update its criteria for assessing TDT project funding to better evaluate the project's contributions to community and workforce and job needs. And this was done. The the art committee, which I see we have a member here, and the Mark Riker in the audience, and Vicki Landon, who is our arts administrator, and they worked to take some of the ideas that came up during the last TDT task force, as well as ARC went through a very extensive process to allocate the $75 million that the 2023 task force suggested. And they eventually funded 11 groups. And part of that discussion, they saw some things in the matrix that could have been tweaked. So they spent time at the end going over this and made adjustments to the ARC matrix. And that was approved February 20th, 2026, and that's what we will be using for this task force. And in addition, on the application, and you have that in your packet, we did ask workforce questions, both about workforce during construction and after construction, wages and benefits. So now for the meaty stuff. We are going to get into how many applications we received. And we received 24 interest indicators, and 17 were deemed eligible. The request for the 24 was over $3 billion in funding. And we have provided a packet to you that shows that all of the applications, you have all the applications. In addition, you have a spreadsheet that will make it easier for you to make notes moving forward on all the projects. And then you have Whitney Evers' legal compilation of comments for your review. The interest indicator applicants who are moving forward are going to be asked to make presentations on 3 dates: July 28th, July 29th, and August 5th. And we know we added an extra meeting on August 11th to accommodate 3 days of review. But with 17 applications to advance, it was a lot to do in just 2 days. We just didn't feel like we could do that. In addition, we're having to extend the hours to 2 o'clock. Each applicant will be given 15 minutes to present, and then the task force members will have 15 minutes to ask questions. In addition, as Mayor mentioned this morning, we retained Georgia State University, and Dr. Peter Bluestone will provide an economic analysis on a number of the projects. He will not be performing an economic analysis on the granting programs because we don't know what the money is going to go for. That's just funding existing programs. And that's what I just mentioned here. So these 5 granting programs, and you're going to see some new ones in here. So you have the Tourist Development Tax Application Review, which is ARC, which is an existing program. And then you have Orange County Arts and Cultural Affairs. That's an existing program. You have a Major Events Fund, which is being requested by Florida Citrus Sports and the Greater Orlando Sports Commission. You have an Orange County Ecotourism Grant Program, which is brand new. And then you have an Orange County Natural Resource Ecotourism Infrastructure Programming Grant that would cover things like lake restoration that you heard Whitney talk about earlier. And that we did talk to some of the communities like the Conway Chain of Lakes, the Apopka Chain Lake, to get some input on that. And again, that is a program that is being proposed. All of these will be voted on and ranked by 3 different requirements: tourism expansion, project soundness, and anticipated return on investment, including the workforce and community impact. This is you have the matrix in you have a larger version of this, but this is the matrix that was approved by the ARC Advisory Board on February 20, 2026. Now, the evaluation process, very similar to last year. And we're pleased to have with us Dr. Nicken Beers. Nicken, will you please stand? He is a research statistician in Corrections Department, and he will be sending you a survey link on August 5th at the end of all your presentations. And then at that point, members will be asked to complete the survey and submit it back. And he will compile all of the information and on August 11th, present the task force members with the final results. Here are the 17 groups that we are proposing to move forward. And I'm going to just tell you a little bit about them. You have all of the applications, all 24, in your packet. And then you have Whitney is going to follow me and tell you a little bit, answer any questions you might have about these groups, why not. And I'll start from the beginning. The 8 Waves Corporation, it is an I Am Children's Museum. We have the Alcrest Capitol, the Florida Freshwater Discovery Center. We have the Association to Preserve Eatonville, Zora Neale Hurston International Museum. Creative City Project, Immerse Festival. Dr. Phillips Center for the Performing Arts, Theater, Event Space, and Expansion. Dr. Phillips, Inc., which is the Hungerford property, and that is an Eatonville Museum of Culture and History. You have Florida Citrus Sports for a parking structure adjacent to Camping World Stadium. Florida Citrus Sports and the Sports Commission for a blockbuster event fund. Florida State Representative Bruce Anton for the Florida Museum of History at Orange County. Orange Audubon Society, Orange Audubon Natural History Museum. Orange County Ecotourism Grant Program. Orange County Ecotourism Natural Resource Tourism Infrastructure Grant Program. TDT Application Review Committee ARC Grant Program. Orange County Arts and Cultural Affairs Marketing Subsidy and Increased Program Funding. Orlando City Dreamers Major League Baseball. The Orange County Convention Center Multipurpose Hall and Retractable Seating. And UCF Broadcast Event Infrastructure and Sports Venues. So those are the 17 that we are proposing to move forward to presentation. And now I am going to open this up. Whitney, if you want to mention what they have in front of them.
Certainly. Is the microphone on? Can you hear me okay? Okay, good. So as Roseanne mentioned, you've got this document in front of you. It's, I think it's roughly 7 pages. What I did was I took all of the applications as they came in last Friday, Thursday, Friday. I skimmed all of them to see what they were asking for, and my initial review is what this is based on. You'll note, you know, I'm a lawyer, there's a disclaimer at the top. There's always a disclaimer. This is performed on Friday. It was based solely on the information that was in the application that was provided. This is not intended to be a formal or final legal review. What I did intend is to help you all, when you review the applications, to go through them so you have the benefit of seeing my additional comments and any legal issues or concerns that I had. And these are only as it relates to the uses in the statute and whether or not these comply with the statute. So what I've done is I've ordered these and color-coded them in green, yellow, and red for you. The ones in green are the ones that I'm pretty comfortable meet the statutory requirements. Those you'll see up front. Anything in yellow were items that I had some questions about or had concerns about, and you'll see those listed in the table so that you can read those as you go through the applications yourself. Anything in red were things that I felt, based on the application on its face, probably do not meet the statutory requirements, at least based on the information that was provided in there to me. And the 5 that you see that are not on the screen, that I can't see without my glasses, are the School Board of Orange County, because they were proposing a School of Arts and Entertainment at Cherokee. This one is primarily a public school, and I know that they made great efforts to say that it wasn't for a school. However, the application itself starts off with, it will be the first public high school purpose-built at the intersection of arts and immersive technology. Schools are not an authorized TDT use, and so my initial reading of that is that that does not qualify under the statute. The second item is for the Town of Eatonville Community Redevelopment Agency. On this one, they had checked the box for an auditorium, but listed a whole host of uses, including restoration of Historic Club Eaton, a food hall, municipal parking, EV charging, underground stormwater infrastructure, and streetscape improvements. They did also list an outdoor venue, which may qualify for TDT depending on how it's actually presented, but the bigger concern here is that the Eatonville CRA expires in January of next year, and so it might be a bit of a struggle if that does not actually get renewed to fund that, as well as the concerns with the statutory uses that they've listed in there. The next one that we had concerns with was the Four Roots Foundation. What they are proposing is a welcome center, and they've indicated that that welcome center will include an indoor market, a restaurant, an outdoor space, a health institute, and a teaching kitchen. And it did not seem to me that any of those met the statutory requirements. Now, we did give some funding to Four Roots a couple years ago through ARC, and that was for an outdoor venue. So I believe that primarily any tourism that is created from that venue would be from the money that we already funded for the venues that we gave them the prior funding for. A welcome center doesn't seem like it would draw tourists on its own. Next one, City of Ocoee had proposed the, I guess I'll call it the renovation refurbishing of the Forest Lake Golf Club. They had checked off the statutory box for a convention center, a sports stadium, sports arena, coliseum, or auditorium, and had indicated that a lot of what they would be doing would be refurbishing the existing golf course and tees and things like that. And a golf course is not a standalone allowable use under the TDT statute. And so based on the information that was in the application here, I didn't feel like this one qualified on its face for TDT funding. Similarly, City of Winter Garden had proposed an application for dredging of boat ramps in Newton Park, and then they also said Magnolia Park, which they said was in Apopka. So there were some questions about whether or not they were proposing a use for a different entity other than themselves, but also, excuse me, as I mentioned in my presentation earlier, boat ramps are not considered to be a physical preservation of the water body itself. The Attorney General has weighed in on that and said boat ramps are not an authorized use. So on that, I determined that this probably doesn't meet the statutory requirements. The last one that I have in red is the Arching Oaks Art and Culture Center. This one was proposed for promotion of tourism for Japanese tourists. And unfortunately, this applicant is located in Lake County, and Orange County's TDT funds do need to stay in Orange County. So it was determined that we were not going to pass that one through.
There was one more, the Orlando Philharmonic, but they asked for 10 million and the minimum was 20 million. And that's it. So what we need from the group is just, you've had a chance to see this, we need to start scheduling the presentations, so we just need to make sure that everybody's okay with this group of 17, and then we will go ahead and start scheduling the presentations.
Thank you, Roseanne. I expect there are questions to be asked. And Roseanne, I know that some of these will be able to be referred to other granting organizations like ARC.
Yes, and so one of the challenges that we faced was that ARC was out of funding and it needs to be replenished. So I think some groups felt like they would come directly here in case ARC didn't get funding. And so our hope is that maybe ARC gets funded and then we can refer groups to that program. The same with the lake projects is that if they come back and meet statute, that if we get approval for this ecotourism infrastructure grant, that would be a better avenue to come through. Because it's more, there was great need from a lot of the municipalities related to lakes.
And we will be addressing our recommendation for funding for those organizations early in the process, Roseanne?
Yes, so if everybody is okay with this lineup, what we were going to do the first day was have these requests for the granting organizations. And so that's 6 requests, I believe. We have the 2 arts, 2 ecotours. It's 5 requests, 5 requests would go the first day, and that way you're really familiar with the granting programs. And then we'd probably do 7 on the first day, 7 on the second day, and then 6 on the last day, and we would finish with Dr. Bluestone would give you the results of his economic impact analysis. So that was kind of the schedule if we have 17. And if we have more than that, then we have to adjust the timing.
Although you've been told, I believe, that the schedule of those meetings will be extended to 2 o'clock instead of noon, right? Everybody knows that?
Yes, we reached out and made the request that due to the large number of applications that we extend the 3 meetings, July 28th, July 29th, and August 5th to 2 p.m., and we would provide lunch.
It's wonderful how volunteer opportunities always seem to expand a bit once you've done the volunteering. But all in a good cause, all in a good cause. Questions for Roseanne?
I see Mr. Mayers first.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Thank you, Roseanne. Quick question, and I think you clarified it a little bit, but we're going to hear on the economic impact at the end as opposed to each presentation?
Yes, Dr. Bluestone preferred to do it at the end because he's not able to do an economic, and he's actually on the phone if he wants to jump in, and he can tell you his strategy, but he preferred to do it at the end because he's not doing one on. Dr. Bluestone, are you on the line? Oh, I guess he must have jumped off.
Yeah.
He must
Or
have
he
jumped
needs
off,
to
but
push his
he's
button.
not going to be doing an economic impact on every single
Right.
one of these 17. What he's decided to do is he looked at where there he is
There he
right
is.
now. I will let Dr. Bluestone tell you his strategy of how he's going to do the economic analysis.
Great. Can everyone hear me?
Yes?
Yes.
Great. Thank you, and thank you for having me. Yes, so some of these projects will be analyzed as they provide the necessary data to do a complete analysis. Others are a little premature. And so I've also done a cursory analysis of the projects and put them into various categories. I'll be able to offer guidance on the ones we don't do a full economic impact analysis and be available for questions on those. But again, some of these projects are in very early stages and don't provide nearly enough data to do a thorough economic impact workup.
No, thank you for that. That's helpful. I mean, my one concern was, maybe there's a way we can look at, obviously, the ones that we don't have enough data, or the committees, obviously, there's nothing to talk about there. My one concern would just be if we're reviewing a project and then we don't talk about the economic impact at that moment, and then 2 weeks later we touch on it. I don't know. My thought is it might be more conducive or helpful for everyone to get a holistic picture on the project if we looked at the economic impact, at that time if it's available.
So I will be available if the committee has questions about projects. And again, my goal will be to have much of the work done for the major projects prior to some of these meetings. Again, I will be interested in the presentations as well and will make modifications as necessary. But I am going off of the data that was provided in the applications primarily. And so, again, if there are issues and concerns that the committee has, I would be happy to address those.
Okay, no, that's helpful. Thank you.
Next, Tina?
I have this kind of two-part question. In previous years, you and I talked about this, it would be probably a good idea to just ask it here.
Can you speak into the mic?
Oh, sorry. You had asked me to bring this question up to you because I'd asked you previously. In previous years, they had done the advisory committee over from April through July. This year, it's all crammed in 1 week schedule. And then the second part of that is how does that play into the opportunity for public input or the public to be involved or be a part of this process? Since for most of us who work, we're damn near taking a week's vacation to be here this, the next week to do this. How does that play into the public's ability to be a part of the process?
So let me answer the first question. The first task force we did, we had 5 meetings, and if some of the people remember, we had a month between the first meeting and the second meeting when we did the interest indicators. And then we had weeks in between sessions where we had presentations and the next tranche of presentations. There were 3 times we did presentations. There was so much time that you started to forget the presentations that went earlier. So some of the feedback we got was try and keep those together. And if you can do them back to back, that's better, because now over a 2-day period of time, or 3, like a week's period of time, I can remember everything that's said, but over a month and a half, that was a long time. The other thing, like you just mentioned, people were taking time out of their jobs, and it got to be a couple of months. But the first meeting, we did have a month because we were sending out the interest indicators. So we had to wait a month, and that was not ideal. And so what we did this time was we sent the interest indicators out the same time that we were asking for recommendations to this group. So they got a full month to fill out those applications and get them into us. So they didn't lose any time. In fact, they gained time this time. There wasn't so much of a rush in between the first meeting and the second meeting. So they had more time. We did publicize as much as possible. We got 24 applications. Last time we had a lot of applications, but most of them for very small dollar amounts. So this time we specifically came up with a minimum so that we didn't start encroaching on our other grant level programs. And that's kind of the rationale. The other thing was, as you heard the mayor mention this morning, was the legislature was in session late this year. There were special sessions. The governor didn't sign the budget until July 1st. Up until that point, we didn't know if there was going to be any changes to the tourism development tax. And so it was premature to start this, because if they changed things, then we would have to modify. So we waited until after that, and then the first meeting after our budget hearings was last week, literally last Thursday, and here we are on Tuesday. And then finishing up, when we look at this, has to go after you to the Tourist Development Council, and has to go to the Board of County Commissioners, and they might need 1 or 2 other meetings. And again, then we start getting into the new legislative session, and the mayor really wanted to make sure that we protected Orange County's money, and that it did not go back to the state for some reason.
Great, thank you so much. That makes a lot more sense.
Who's next on this? Mr. Morgan? I will point out that we are now behind schedule, and we certainly want to maintain time for the members of the public to speak. So if you have questions that could be asked of Roseanne or Whitney after the meeting, that might be helpful.
Well, mine is very quick, Madam Mayor. We talked about, we're advancing 17, we've rejected 7. We see the reasons why they were rejected. Very thorough report. Thank you to staff for that. But several of the rejected ones, it says more information needed, more clarification needed. Will they have an opportunity to clarify or provide that information? Or are we considering them just out of the process now and we'll look at you later? And what I'm asking is, does that mean we could add 1 or 2 more groups after clarification to our workload?
Roseanne?
So we met with the mayor yesterday afternoon, and some of these were pretty clear cut where they didn't meet the statute. And the other ones were, and I'm not sure which one you're talking about.
Just several that just said more information needed.
And Whitney, I don't know, I don't have your document in front of me to know which one needed more information, but the Lake County one was a clear cut. The Eatonville CRA CRA's expiring in January, and the board hasn't decided whether they're going to extend the CRA. Then you had the Winter Guard. You had the lake, which was a dock, and that was the Attorney General's opinion. And then you had...
So I'll just jump in real quick. Again, going back to my introductory statement, this is not intended to be a full and final legal review. This was intended to give you all some guidance as you're reviewing them, just the things that jumped out at me. That's why you'll see on almost all of them, it says more information is needed.
And with more information, let's keep in mind that those applications could go to one of the granting organizations if we were to recommend giving money to ARC, and if we were to recommend approving the new ecosystem and environmental, that would provide an opportunity perhaps for some of these.
So my question is, do the ones that says more information needed, is there a process for them to rehabilitate, or are they just not in our conversation and we will opportunity to fund them the way you have directed, Madam Chair?
So the way we left it.
That's ultimately up to the task force, right?
Yes, so
I mean, the task force is here to
we are
recommend what
recommending
goes to the board.
17. If you decide to pull any of the ones, the 7 that we said were ineligible, then what you're doing is adding more review to your group, and we might have to add another day. So that's up to you. We extend the hours. It's up to you. You have 17 already now. That's basically 7 on 2 days, which last time we did 4 on each day. It's 7 on each day, and then 2 days and 6 on 1 day. If you want to add more, then we need to add more time. But that's fine with us if you would like to move that way.
I want to acknowledge next on the agenda we'll have member comments, and so if some of your questions are appropriate for that as well, we can do that. It allows us to move forward and then get to the public comments next. Christine Moore.
Yes, it's similar to Mr. Perez's question. Since economic impact is so important, we know that the success of this whole program has been from picking projects that have brought a lot of revenue to the county. And so what our esteemed doctor said was he didn't necessarily have enough information on it, several of the applicants to properly prepare an economic statement. So I'm just hoping this board would vote to allow any of those particular groups to provide additional information, because that economic impact statement is, at least for me, very vital in my decision making.
Agreed. Honestly, it's one of the things I've been looking forward to most in the process. I will acknowledge that by his definition of premature, some of these plans may just require much more than the time that this committee could allow them to actually put together as comprehensive enough a plan to provide an economic study. But we'll lean on staff to help us realize if there are some that could allow for more information that helps them. But I'm guessing that what we've evaluated really looks at some significant gaps. So we can come back.
And we will follow up with every one of the 17, if there's more than that, and preparing them for their presentations. And then clearly Dr. Bluestone is here. I don't know if he wants to make any comments.
Could you speak more to that, Dr. Bluestone?
Yes, I can. So premature, and most of these is in the process that the applicant is at in the development of their idea and their proposal. And so the information that would be needed isn't yet available because they are not far enough along for it to be generated. And so that's where most of these that again I can speak to, but can't do a formal analysis, that's where they fall.
Are there any questions that can be held? Okay, go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Since this is a committee, point of order, do you want a motion by the committee to accept staff's recommendation to move forward on the 17? Or do you want to have a deadline where, it seems to me some of these applications that were from 18 to 24 are incomplete or insufficient in data?
I'd like to ask a question before that motion is contemplated.
Well, we'll have discussion.
I'm asking this question.
And I thought we had a queue, but.
First of all, thank you for that suggestion about a motion. I think that we will take it up, but let's have, yes, I did see that he was in the
Yes, Mr.
queue.
Dunn, you can go next.
Is it my turn? I don't want to take anybody else's turn. Coming off of Tico's comment, the people and the ones that are rejected, I'm not trying to pile a bunch more work on, but they don't have, when they filled out the forms, the benefit of the education that we've had this morning. So I think the question is, a reclama process that those could come back. And I get there's some that are digital, that, you know, you're in Lake County, got it. But the ones that you said, like you referred to, that needed further information, is there a process for them? I appreciate that they have other avenues of coming through to ask for funding, but again, they didn't have the benefit of what we did this morning, so they kind of were flying blind, and most of them are probably not attorneys. And
There is something to be said about the process being made. All the information needed for every applicant to provide information is made public, and there is a timeline provided to everyone. So there's also a fairness argument for those who did provide all the information necessary in the time window that was given. So we have to be careful as we think about reevaluating applications. I think next I saw Kimberly.
Yes, this is a really simple question, just nuts and bolts. This is a very aggressive schedule, and it kind of appears to have that fast track look to it. And I feel like it might be good to have public access to all of the information, maybe on a website or something, if that could be done. That's a suggestion, but the real question is, will we have an opportunity to access these meetings remotely? Because now looking at the timeline,
Yes.
And I think on the last.
We're going to address that.
Okay, great. Thank you so much.
And we do have a website, and all of this information is going to be on the website. And actually, this meeting is being live streamed and taped. And so somebody can go back and from our website, which is TDT, Citizens Advisory Task Force / OCFL.net. We'll get that, we'll put that up on the screen, and we'll get that information to you. But yes, they can go back and review the entire meeting, and they can review every application, and even everything that you have been given will be available on the website. And in fact, we just gave it to the media this morning.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Kim. Vance?
Yes, so just so I know the process going forward, and I'm going to use Edenville as an example. So with the CRA is if they go in the next couple weeks and they, you know, vote on extending the CRA and everything gets done and these things get answered and completed, they will come back to ARC to get funding. Is that correct? And then at the same time, they would do an eco-impact analysis of where they are with the request at that time?
So that's a really good question. Process-wise is that if this group supports funding ARC at a certain level, then that grant process won't start until next year. So you're absolutely correct. Any group that does, in fact, we had it happen last time, any groups, and they ended up getting money from ARC. Any group that didn't make it through here can refine and go back to ARC, or refine and go to, if this group so chooses, to advance an ecotourism infrastructure, an ecotourism grant. They could refine, like the Winter Garden request is perfect to refine and bring to that grant program. But we're trying to stand that up, and they will all start next year. So anybody who isn't successful here can modify and go to those.
Thank you, Vance. Mr. Poole, did you have a question earlier? I want to make sure.
I did, but knowing Linda, I decided to take her suggestion, and I'll submit my questions about stuff to hope get answered.
Thank you very much.
In that case, is a motion appropriate, Roseanne, here? Whitney? Yes,
I
it
think
is.
for
So,
the record, unless if everybody's comfortable making some kind of a motion.
Mr. Callen, I believe you had that in mind.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. For the benefit of the chair and the staff, I think the committee should make a motion to accept staff recommendation and delete items 18 through 23 from consideration of the ARC funding.
I'll second that, Mr. Mayor.
Discussion on that motion.
Can you repeat the motion? I'm sorry. Just that we would delete items 18 through 23 that we have in front of us here, accept staff recommendation and delete them from consideration of the funding in this task force at this time for this cycle.
Further discussion? Very well. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor of the motion, please say aye and raise your hands.
Aye.
All of those opposed to the motion? Anyone abstaining from the motion? One member abstaining.
I apologize. Legally, you can't abstain unless you have a conflict of interest. Do you have a conflict of interest on that? So if you're present, you do need to vote either yes or no unless you declare a conflict.
Then I vote in favor.
Thank you. And Roseanne, will you go on, please, about the meetings and the opportunities available?
Yes,
For those
so
who
we will
cannot make
have,
it.
as I mentioned, we'll have 7 presentations the first day on July 28th. We'll have 7 on July 29th, and we'll have 6 on August 5th. We'll do all the granting programs on July 28th. And I am going to now, once we leave here, work with all of the groups to try and accommodate their schedules. And some people have already reached out and given me their availability. We try and be respectful of that. As far as the virtual component, yes, there will be an option for virtual, but you have to be present for the vote on August 11th. But there will be a virtual component for July 28th and 29th. However, we have to have a quorum inside the room in order for the meeting to take place. So we're going to be really trying to get as many people in person as we can. And so if you can make it in person, we really, really need you there so that we have a quorum. And if you have any concerns about or questions about being virtual, just Natalia will reach out to you. We'll be sending you some information, and we'll get you all set up. But August 11th, we need you here because that's the discussion on how we rank, and any kind of vote requires you to be in the room to vote.
Okay. Very well. We will now turn to our public comments. And as a reminder to our task force members, this is the time when we listen to the public, not when we engage in a discussion or even questions with members of the public. And so I am going to place a time limit of 2 minutes on public comment, and I'm going to turn this over to Natalia Garcia, Assistant to the County Administrator, to introduce those who wish to speak from the public.
Good afternoon, everyone. For this afternoon, we have 7 public comments. We're going to go ahead and start with Commissioner Semrad. Ms. Semrad, will you please go up to the podium? Following Commissioner will be Mr. Nelson Betancourt. Following Jennifer Evans. Please state your name and address for the records, and you have 2 minutes. Thank you.
My apologies, I'm used to standing at the people's podium. Good morning or afternoon. Thank you, everybody, to each one of you for serving. I am Dr. Kelly Martinez Semrad. I am Orange County Vice Mayor and the District 5 Commissioner. I also want to thank in particular the District 5 representatives at large. We have Dr. Sergio Alvarez, who is an expert in economics. Also, we have Ella Wood, who is the Policy Director of Unite Here, representing 20,000 hospitality workers across Central Florida. We also have, coming from Winter Park, Michael Poole, who is a strong advocate for responsible use of TDT. Former Councilman Guthrie from Maitland, also in favor of support of using TDT to solve public problems, and then the city, of course. So I bring to you today that the people last time, the citizen-led task force, spent hundreds of hours making 4 recommendations. The first 2 were easy. It was how to spend the money, and they were executed. The third one was about tourism tax reform. That is not the same as pursuing a penny sales tax. It is reforming how we tax tourists and make money off of them. That did not occur. Going to Florida Association of Counties and asking them to support is not the same as what the language in the recommendation was, which was strongly push the state to allow for tourism tax reform. I'm asking this committee to unanimously and emphatically endorse that recommendation of the 2023 task force. The opportunity for reform right now is ripe because the state is telling us, hey, the top line on property value increased. It resulted in more money coming in. We need to reform it. Same exact principle for TDT. The top line has increased because we have more hotel rooms that charge more. We have more money, therefore we need reform. The voters are asking for it. I'm asking for it, and two other commissioners that stood out on that lawn with me saying that we are asking for you to honor the will of the voters. So please, do not bond us into oblivion. You do not have to cash out. Pick the projects that have the greatest community return on investment and make a recommendation that this committee should charge the BCC with finding ways to solve people's problems using people money that benefit the tourists that come here, like transportation.
Thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you.
And the appropriate time for this task force to make that decision or recommendation would be at the end of our meetings. Thank you.
I'm accustomed to speaking in front of the Board of County Commissioners. Do I have to give where I live and all that?
Yes, please.
Nelson Betancourt, 5350 East Scaly Street, Orlando, Florida, 32812. Good day, Ms. Chapin and Mr. Moreton, and members of the task force. Orange County is like a parent who has a sick child, but instead of taking him to a doctor, takes care of him by painting his toys. We live in a community where fantasy is our primary product, and our public servants, for the most part, live in a fantasy world, building more entertainment and distraction to avoid the hard decisions of taking better care of its working population instead of the corporate few. That is why I would be strongly opposed to spending TDT money in funding the construction of a proposed baseball stadium. Why do we continue to invest money in funding extremely profitable businesses like Disney World, Universal Studios, SeaWorld, sports team owners, when we ought to use much of that money to develop a more diversified, anti-fragile, and democratic economy? Has this much fantasy corrupted the very imagination needed to overcome our difficult and complex problems? And how much longer before we really confront those hard decisions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Betancourt.
Up next, following Jennifer, if you could go ahead and line up. Next would be Eugene Staccardo, Eric Gray, and Diego Henry. Go ahead. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm Jennifer Evans. I reside at 520 East Church Street in Orlando, 32801. Good afternoon. I'm Jennifer Evans, President and CEO of United Arts of Central Florida, the designated local arts agency of Orange County. On behalf of the entire local arts sector, I want to thank you all for volunteering your time and to Orange County for its continued leadership and investment in arts and culture to promote tourism. The investment is working. Over the last 8 years, county support has helped strengthen arts facilities, expand cultural tourism marketing and programming, and support more than 86 art and multicultural organizations across Orange County. These organizations serve residents, employ thousands of creative workers, and welcome visitors, and have a $500 million economic impact on our local economy. The Orange County Arts and Cultural Master Plan, called Canvas, represents the will of the people of Orange County for the public investment of funds in the arts. Now we need the resources to implement it. That means increased ARC funding for regional community arts centers and additional investment in arts and culture to promote tourism. Please vote in favor of the request of Orange County Arts and Cultural Affairs leader Vicki Landon next week. Thank you.
Next.
Mr. Eugene Staccardo. Thank you, sir. Please state your name and address for the record. Thank you.
Oh, my glasses. Oh, well. Hi. I'm one of the people that don't get to choose where my taxes go to, so I'm just a little person. My name's Eugene Staccardo, 331 Roswell Avenue. A quick review of this, what you've heard this morning. A billionaire is looking to have the public dollars to finance their baseball stadium. Local citizens can't afford to actually go there and buy the tickets. $750 million plus for Dr. Phillips, where no local bands can afford to play at, nor can most citizens actually afford to buy the tickets. $500 million for another convention center expansion where a lot of the space is empty most of the time. I say no to all these proposals. 76 million people come to this Orange County every year. I-4 has to have relief ASAP. TDT monies must be used to connect the airport to the tourist areas with mass transit. I realize the tourist industry has made campaign contributions to the right people in Tallahassee to design a law the way that they want it. But that doesn't make it right. I don't get to choose where my taxes are spent, and nor most of the people in this audience either, or in TV. Nor does the tourist industry should not get this either. Fix the law, give the flexibility to our commissioners to use the money to help the local community needs. If you can't change the law, then pay off the existing debt for all the projects, only pay the required costs that continue operations. Meanwhile, give tax relief to the tourists who come to visit our county, because it's becoming very unaffordable for those. And by the way, for you all who don't believe that, I go camping around the state, I pay TDT when I camp. So we do pay whenever we go and do other activities. So it hits all of us. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Gray. And I want to, excuse me. Did we? Okay.
Mr. Gray was kind enough to allow me to go first. He knows my schedule is ridiculous and I hadn't planned to give public comment, but I'll start by introducing myself, Nicole Wilson, Orange County Commissioner for Beautiful District 1. Thank you so much to this committee for your work. This is not going to be easy, as you can already tell. I didn't prepare any comments today because I believe this was going to be a process that I could participate in potentially by having individual conversations, watching, giving guidance, or emailing information to anybody that I have, until I saw that the project from Winter Garden was just magically dropped from the list and that you all were kind of cornered into voting to approve that abbreviated list. The spreadsheet we got said that there were some things that need to be resolved about the application, but what I wanted to do, if I can be given some grace, is to actually read the original letter that I received from the City of Winter Garden and from advocates and from Friends of Lake Apopka. And this went out to the entire Board of County Commission. Essentially, more than $300 million has been invested by the state of Florida over the past 30 years to restore Central Florida's 31,000-acre crown jewel, Lake Apopka, as the headwaters of the Ocklawaha Basin. Lake Apopka's water quality affects waterways all the way up the St. Johns River to Jacksonville. St. Johns River Water Management District has done a phenomenal job of reducing phosphorus in Lake Apopka the past 30 years, and that work must continue. 50 years of dead vegetation lies at the bottom of our shallow lake, with an average depth of 5.5 feet. And every time a strong wind blows, portions of that muck are churned up into water column, turning the lake brownish green. Turbidity inhibits native aquatic vegetation growth, hinders navigation, and reduces recreational use in Lake Apopka. FOLA believes that it's time to begin addressing turbidity in Lake Apopka. FOLA is proposing that we begin the clarification of Lake Apopka with 3 projects. And it goes on to describe dredging near Newton Park, which is an Orange County, which is a Winter Garden Park, dredging near Magnolia Park. clearly the word ramp isn't used anywhere in here. So I understand my time is up, but what I'm trying to establish is that this particular application for a use was disregarded or eliminated because it was for ramp construction, then the application wasn't either completely read, the intent of the project wasn't understood, or there needed to be clarification, which once again, I believed was what would happen following today. To see that they are just disappeared from the list is concerning, and I would ask you to ask whoever is willing or able to review that again, to look at it under dredging, because dredging is an allowable use under the statute. It was one of the AG opinions, and so for this to be dismissed as a construction project for ramps was a misinterpretation of the project. Thank you so much for your time and for all of your attention.
Thank you, Commissioner. Lake Apopka has a wonderful history of tourism and, of course, is gaining many tourists in today's world. And now we'll hear from Mr. Gray, whom I want to thank for being one of the people who did go to Tallahassee, one of the few, if perhaps the only one.
Nobody from Orange County presented.
So we
Or City of Orlando, so yeah, I was the only one.
We appreciated your presence there, Mr.
Yes,
Gray.
and I appreciate you, Madam Mayor, and getting to address you in a formal setting like this for the very first time is an honor on all its own, so thank you. My name is Eric Gray, 921 Spring Island Way. I serve on the Orange County Planning and Zoning Commission, and I'm also their representative to the Affordable Housing Board here for Orange County, and I was 3 years ago a member of this task force. I had the distinction, not knowingly at the time, that I was going to be the only dissenting vote on the recommendations made to the Board of County Commissioners. I'd like to thank the task force for agreeing to include independent economic analysis in your deliberations. I think that's an important step forward. I appreciate Comptroller Diamond's analysis from an accounting point of view, and I think it'll help us a great deal to have that analysis from somebody who could talk about the potential ROI. I spent a lot of time reviewing Florida Statute 125.0104, Section 5A, Paragraph 6, requires that certain projects include, quote unquote, and I please read the statute, an independent professional analysis demonstrating the positive impact of the infrastructure project on tourist-related businesses in the county. It requires that, but not of attractions, just of anything other than attractions. I think it's important when you read that statement to understand why that's in there. This raises a simple question. If the legislature believes independent economic analysis is important enough to require for some projects, why wouldn't Orange County voluntarily apply that same principle to every investment opportunity, including ecotourism, smaller projects, and the like? Every proposal before you is competing for the same tourist development tax dollars, whether it's a convention center expansion, ecotourism, arts and culture, transportation, or a parking garage, or any other eligible use. Every dollar you allocate is a dollar that cannot be invested somewhere else. The applicants have done exactly what you've asked them to do. They've made the best possible case for their own projects. Your responsibility is a little different. Your responsibility is to determine which investment creates the greatest economic benefit for the residents of Orange County. This requires apples to apples comparisons. Every project should compete on a level playing field using the same objective evaluation framework. The methodology may differ depending on the size of the project, but every recommendation should be informed by independent economic analysis, not just the largest or most familiar projects. I'm asking that you work outside this. I'm not asking that you work outside the statute. I'm asking you to follow the statute, but hold us to a slightly higher standard because we're the largest tourism economy in the United States. I'm asking you to choose a process that allows every dollar to compete. I encourage you to slow this down just a bit. I think you've already seen the effort to try and move it a little bit faster. I'm just about done. Think about whether you want your name attached to the recommendations ultimately made. That was why I didn't vote for this the last time. I didn't want my name attached to this because the process is the product.
Thank you, Mr. Gray.
Orange County already has the largest tourism economy in America. Now let's build the smartest investment process to match it. Thank you.
Thank you. And next, Mr. Henry.
Following Mr. Henry, please Ryan Myers. And our last speaker, John Breacher, please.
Hello, everyone. Thank you for your time. My name is Diego Henry. I live at 5102 Chola Way, Apartment 5, Orlando, Florida, 32808. I am a resident of Orange County. I work at Walt Disney World as a coordinator. My proudest thing about being a Disney cast member are my benefits. My health insurance. I have health issues. I'm older. It happens. But it's high. In that being said, other tourist workers, team members from other parks and other locations don't have the privilege of my benefits in health insurance. I can't have my family on my health insurance. So when I look out how this money is going to be spent and these applications put in, I pray that you take a moment and think of people like me. People, I am one of thousands who do not have their entire family on their health insurance because it's too high. When you invest, when these people are asking for our money, make sure they're going to give the people that work benefits. It's going to invest in the people and not just the money. All tides should rise, all boats. That's including the county and the people who live in the county. We are the people. Think about us when you make your decisions, not about the profit. Thank you.
Thank you for that suggestion, Mr. Henry.
Howdy, y'all. My name is Ryan Myers. I live at 2813 Falling Tree Circle. I'm a Disney worker over at Star Wars. I sell magic, and I make people, like little people in Ewok costumes, have a great day, and wish may the Force be with them. But to echo what Diego said, I want to compare and contrast a good tourism job to a bad tourism job. Good tourism jobs, like mine, have a lot of benefits, primarily my health care. I've got a plate and 6 screws in there. If I didn't have my health care, I probably would have never used my hand again, and well, I love to draw and I love to make art. I also have good dental care, and I can choose my shifts, but not everyone's like that. One of my friends works at SeaWorld. She doesn't make as much money as me, and when it comes to her shifts, she can show up, they'll tell her that they don't need her, they kick her out, she doesn't make any money that day. Makes it hard to support her grandchildren that way. So we ask that when it comes to the TTT funding, prioritize projects that make good tourism jobs. Good tourism jobs make a better life. Thank you.
Thank you. And now our last speaker, Mr. Breach.
Good afternoon. I'm John Beecham from Historic Edenville. My organization is to preserve the history of Maitland and Edenville. We, Orange County, have a jewel. We have the first Black incorporated municipality in America. We have a jewel. We have 77 million visitors coming to OIA. They make Edenville their destination. They make Edenville their stop. Our Black culture and our Black history has been wiped out in the 32805, which is about a Citrus Bowl, the 32801 Paramore. We talk about the homelessness. Just go look under the bridge tonight. Those people lived in rooming houses. And now because of the new prosperity, their life has been destroyed. Edenville is developed around culture, heritage, tourism, and art. We are opposed to Dr. Phillips coming into Edenville, trying to build a museum, a culture heritage center to tell our story. We have historians in Edenville like the PEC that has applied for a grant to build a museum. We have organizations like my organization do walk-in tours. We have extended the invitation to Dr. Phillips. We have extended them to come do the walk-in tour to learn about the history. Booker T. Washington has come to that property. Eleanor Roosevelt has come to that property because something special happened there. When Edenville Incorporated, every Black person in America said to themselves, we can own homes, we can own lands, because a little place that's located in Orange County, Florida, Edenville, the first Black municipality in America. You go to the Smithsonian, it says Edenville. Edenville was established because of the help of Maitland, white Maitland, Zora Neale Hurston writes about. White Maitland, Josiah Eden, was how Edenville got its name, Maitland First Mayor. Lewis Lawrence, the first church in Edenville, was established because Lewis Lawrence sacrificed to help build St. Lawrence Church. It was established before the town was established. This is American history, And I actually, Tico Perez told me one time, I said, Tico, what do you do what you do? He said, his dad was a doctor, and he said when people die sometime, life flashes before them, and if they make it back, they tell the story. So what I want to do, and I ask you to do, is when your life passes and your life flashes before you, just know that you had an opportunity to save the first black municipality in
Thank you,
America,
Mr.
American
Beecham.
history. God bless you and God bless America.
That concludes our public comments. I just wanted to notify everyone in the back of your binders, there's 2 emails that were sent into the TDT Task Force email inbox with people expressing just their opinion and concerns. So that's for your review. As we receive them, we'll go ahead and provide them to you. With that, Mr. Chair.
Let me conclude by saying thank you once again. We have a formidable challenge ahead of us. We're dealing with something that's extremely important for our community and is nuanced and complex. But the set of tools that we have are also very, very limited, which makes they're in for the challenge. Thank you, because we're in for a great ride ahead. Our next meeting for the TDT Citizen Advisory Task Force is scheduled for July 28th at 9 a.m. We will be for that meeting at the Orange County Innovation Center at 7149 West Colonial Drive, Orlando 32818. The meeting will be publicly noticed and placed on the county calendar. As Mayor Chapin mentioned, this meeting is scheduled to conclude at 2 o'clock. So just be mindful of that with your schedules. Do I have a motion to adjourn today's
Chair,
meeting?
excuse me. Did we skip over member comments? Is there an opportunity? I thought we said there would be member comments after public comments.
I think we might have gotten it straight into public comment. If we have some.
It's on the agenda, so if you choose to do so, you.
Yes.
Yeah, I would just like to add a comment if you don't
Please,
mind.
Kimberly.
So we heard from Commissioner Wilson, and we also heard from a member of the community of Eatonville. And I'd like to revisit the projects that we eliminated from consideration, just because those people were here and spoke up, and I think they deserve our consideration. I'm not afraid of a little extra workload. We're already piling it on, and I would like to make a motion that we add back in and let us deliberate over item 19 and 22 instead of excluding them.
Can we clarify?
Second the motion.
Just clarify
Just-
what 18, you said 19 and 22? What
It's
projects?
on the list we were handed. Number 18 is Town of Eatonville. I think there were some concerns over that. I'm not sure that,
Number 18 is the school board?
I said 19, sorry. Did
Okay,
I say 19?
Okay.
And then 22 is the City of Winter Garden. And the way I read the law, and I do have the law in front of me, and I know you guys don't want me to go to it again, but if it's dredging the lake for, and it's not about building a boat ramp, then that is a use that is outlined in the statute that would be allowable. So I'd like to consider that.
We have a motion on the floor, and did I hear a second?
Second.
Who was that second? Oh, thank you.
I think we've got, any discussion?
Discussion?
Yeah, discussion. In essence, I believe that's a motion to reconsider.
Really, because, yeah.
And so I'd like to have a ruling by legal, because the motion to reconsider would have to be brought forward by, well, she would be on the prevailing side. So if that would change the number of votes that's needed to pass.
No, you're in the same meeting, so you can still have a motion to reconsider.
But that is what she's doing, correct?
Yes.
Well, actually, I'm making a motion to add in 2 items that were excluded. So I don't think it's even the same motion, because that was just based on a guidance, and that was just based on not any sort of final review. I think the people who made these applications deserve at least our consideration based on the information that was just brought up since we made that vote.
So, Commissioner, from a parliamentary perspective, I think it can be handled either way. The original motion has already been done. She can bring it up as a motion to reconsider, or she can make a separate motion. The intent is the same.
Well, I'd prefer a motion, if you're going to do a motion to reconsider, then all of those groups has the opportunity to be reconsidered, because you're picking out just 2. And so perhaps all of the groups should have the same consideration.
I would not oppose that. I think we kind of prematurely eliminated some items from consideration without a full opportunity to review the applications.
is that a friendly amendment then?
We've got a standalone motion, as I understand it, to reconsider those, or to make a change to the original motion. If you would like to withdraw that motion and allow someone to make a motion to reconsider, if you want to make a motion to reconsider the entire original motion, we can do that as well.
It was Tom Callan's motion. How do you feel about it, Tom?
Yeah, I think we should reconsider it. I do think we should give them a limited time to come back and provide a complete application. And if they don't and staff deems it not complete, then they're out again.
Okay, so purely from a process perspective, you have a motion and a second on the floor. The motion was to add those two projects back in. Are you going to rescind your motion, and will the seconder rescind their second, and then someone's going to make a motion to reconsider?
If that's the suggestion for the best way to handle it, I'm happy to do that as long as it accomplishes the same thing.
Okay, our next meeting is what day?
July 28th.
July 28th.
Okay, when do you want this additional information provided to you by staff to give us some kind of input?
Probably by Friday, because if we had to add 5 more, then we'd have to figure out how to do that. And so let me just get the process clear. So they're going to look at what the county attorney
Hang on.
said.
Sorry, Roseanne, before you do that, I just want to clear up. Have you rescinded your motion, Ms. Buchheit?
Only if we're going to accomplish the same thing.
Have you
moving forward.
rescinded your motion, Ms.
I
Buchheit?
will trust everyone to understand what I'm getting at here.
Yes, Kim.
Thank you. I will rescind.
And the seconder is agreeing with the rescission. I didn't catch who the seconder was on that motion.
Ms. Jackson.
Thank you.
Yes. And to clarify, you're saying by a certain date, the groups that were eliminated have to come back and provide further information. So for example, the Winter Garden one was that they had in their application dredging the boat ramps at Newton Park and Winter Garden and Magnolia Park and Apopka. So they have to come back and say they're not actually dredging the boat ramps, they're doing something else. So they're going to come in with a revised scope or a clarification of their scope.
That's not my motion, so I think you're talking to Tom.
We are talking
Okay,
to Tom.
so I'm just trying to figure out what there's due on a certain date.
Roseanne, I'd make a motion to reconsider the previous motion, and the new motion would be to allow those items 19 through 23.
Mr. Callan, I apologize. We need to vote on the motion to reconsider first before you
Okay,
make another
thank you.
motion. And a second, if there's a second.
Further discussion? All in favor of the motion to reconsider, please say
Did we
aye.
have a second?
No.
Was there a second on that motion?
She had to vote down. She had to vote down.
Okay, we have a motion to reconsider by Mr. Callan, a second by Mr. Baga, and vote.
What are we voting on?
All in favor
You're voting
of
on the motion to
reconsider-
reconsider alone, period.
Is there discussion? There should be, right?
Is there any discussion?
Can you clarify what the motion
Yes,
is again,
let's.
Whitney? So that everybody knows.
The motion is simply to make a motion to reconsider the original motion that was made on the 17 projects that were moving forward. That is the only motion they're considering right now.
Is to have a discussion about it.
Yes.
Discussion on the motion? Very well. Are you ready for the vote? All in favor, please raise, excuse me.
Sorry, real quick.
Discussion?
So there are some items in yellow which also seem to be asking for clarification items, and that's why they're not in green. So can they also be given an opportunity to provide the additional information so that we know that the projects that are being evaluated are in accordance with the statute?
So, again, what you have in front of you was an initial review. The intention was to give you all the ability to ask those questions of the applicants when they come in and present, not necessarily for everyone to go back and repeat the application process. If the choice is to pull any or all of the items that you had previously pulled out and bring those back, you have the opportunity to ask those questions at that time.
But you're not suggesting resubmitting a new application.
For those groups.
Clarification.
Yes, I'm just looking at the notes, the legal info and concerns, and there are some items in yellow, some projects in yellow, that are saying, assuming the project is so-and-so, then it would be allowable. But it seems like there is no clarity
Because my
on
intention, again, with that was not to make a final determination for you. My intention was to help you and kind of, because you're doing this quickly, right? You have a week between now and then to read 23 applications. So my intention was to help you kind of pinpoint some of the things that jumped out at me so that when you hear from the applicants, you all can ask those questions or clarify further. Ultimately, if you make the determination after you hear from them that you think it's a good use of TDT and you want to refer the project, you can refer that forward. Nothing is going to get through the BCC or through a funding agreement unless it meets statutory requirements, right? I can't let the county do that. So it's going to meet the statute before it gets approved.
Although clearly we will not ask the project that's in Lake County to clarify.
No,
they're in Lake.
They are not eligible. All right, are you ready for the vote to reconsider the earlier motion? Please
hand vote.
signify by raising your hands. Aye. Nay.
Okay.
One vote nay and two. Sorry, I didn't see. Very well, and there is no ability to abstain.
Okay, so now it's
Now,
Kimberly. Are you making a motion now to reconsider to advance these two groups? Is that what you're suggesting, or you want to discuss all 7 of them?
My motion was to include consideration of items 19 and 22 that had previously been excluded.
Okay, and just to clarify for my clarification, so they would just advance with all the other groups and be scheduled for a presentation. We're not asking for any other information from them.
That's the way I understand it, if that makes sense, but I deferred to Tom because it was his original motion, so that was, my concern was that we heard additional information from 2 of the applicants who thought enough to come here and talk to us today, and I think they deserve consideration. And I didn't want them to get lumped in with the other applications
and
that
they
were
would have
excluded.
the opportunity to present clarification to the staff.
Right, and I'm
the
just trying to
lawyers
answer the question.
by Friday.
I think those 2 that spoke to us deserve to be considered, and that's my motion.
And there is a second for that motion? Yes. Discussion?
Discussion, Commissioner Moore. I wanted to suggest, though, that we opened it up for all of them to clarify by Friday, because really the issue is the legal status. So I believe they should all have the opportunity to clarify by Friday. They would be reviewed again by legal to know if we have to open it up to hear a presentation, because just because they clarify doesn't mean they're still going to meet statutory requirements.
Is that a modification of the motion?
It is.
Who is the second? Very well. Let's have a vote on that.
I'm sorry. Commissioner Moore, can you restate what your motion was there?
Can you hear me? The motion would be for the original group that was rejected by county staff, for each of those entities to clarify by Friday, and for legal to have a secondary review to see if they make qualifications. Thirdly, then at the next meeting, we could vote again to see if we would like to include them in a future interview.
So hold on. Procedurally, are you proposing an amendment to Ms. Buchheit's motion?
Yes.
However you need to handle that, Wendy.
Okay.
And is there a second to the amendment?
Second.
Yes. Discussion? All in favor?
Wait, I have a discussion. I want to make sure that it's just clarification. We set a limit on how much they can. We're not going to have Whitney reviewing a new application. Clarification shall come in the form of 1 paragraph clarification, in this limited time frame. Like we don't need to reinvent the wheel for legal staff.
And also, Commissioner Moore, are you also intending to include the opportunity for Lake County, or are you excluding that item?
Yes, I'd like to amend my own motion to exclude the Lake County application.
Can we assume that rather than voting on an amendment to the motion?
The amendment hasn't been voted on yet, so we're, as long as the seconder is okay with that clarification.
Second is fine.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we are voting on the amendment to the motion. All in favor of the amendment to the motion, please signify by raising your hands. All opposed? Thank you very much. And now we will vote on the motion.
Now you vote on the entire motion as amended. So as I understand it, the motion is now, you've reconsidered your original motion. You're now going to allow all of the projects, with the exception of the Lake County project, to present clarification, a brief clarification by this Friday on any of the legal issues that were identified.
Thank you for that, Whitney. And the maker of the motion and the seconder of the motion are in agreement with the motion as stated.
I'm the maker. Yes, I agree with that.
And thank you. All in favor of the motion before us, please signify by raising your hands. All opposed? Is that one or two? I don't see. It's one. Okay. Thank you very much for that. And now we will talk about the next meeting, or have we already done that, Mr.
Yeah, to the much
Co-Chairman?
easier task of a motion to adjourn.
Motion to adjourn.
Wonderful. I have a second. Thank you.
Yeah, I'll vote to adjourn.
This meeting is adjourned. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you.